Hello and welcome to the Nerd Room. I'm Tim.
And I'm Sunjay.
And here we are. We're back again to talk all things comics and movies.
Welcome to episode 2, The Force Awakens. That's right?
Not this again. Come on, man. So it's been a busy week. Another busy week in the world of nerd.
Anything happen?
When I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, I've got some nice tidbits of a few movies, some comic news. Oh yeah, and that humongous Batman vs Superman trailer.
That dropped? Oh man. Okay, wait. I'm gonna pause and take a watch. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I think we need a little longer to analyze it.
Should we begin with the walk to the comic shop? Just jump right in?
Yeah, I think so. We got a lot to get through here.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go. So, as we mentioned, Tim mentioned previously, Batman vs Superman trailer dropped this week. We're going to get into that in a lot more details coming up. So, we'll start first with the Marvel news roundup of the week.
Yeah, so we've got lots of Marvel news coming out here, little tidbits of things from Civil War, keep trickling in, and like I kind of said before, I'm staying away from everything.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of here or there, photos and that, but I'm stepping off from it. I'm not reading any articles anymore. There's been some stuff leaked a bit about Black Panther, in particular some of his storyline, plot threads, and stuff like that, but I've stayed away from that. You checking that stuff out, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just feel like, you know what? I'm gonna go in, see what it's about. I can't wait. That's my problem. I'm too impatient, so I always try to say, you know what? I'm gonna stay away from it. Then all of a sudden I'll see some big rumor. It's like, spoiler alert, Black Panther is this, and I'll be like, kind of want to check that out. I'm curious. I want to see what it's about. So I give in. I'm weak. I'm not as strong as you. I admit that.
Yeah, I gotta stay away. But one tidbit that I did want to talk about here quickly was, so we're getting a lot more news about the Black Panther movie itself. So we get his introduction in Civil War. It seems like they found a director. His name's Ryan Coogler. Did Creed.
That's right. That's right.
Fruitvale Station as well. Both good movies. I haven't seen Creed yet, but Fruitvale Station's really good.
Yeah, you recommend?
Yeah, I'd definitely see it. I'd check it out. But it's interesting enough because this movie got pushed out by Spider-Man.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So we're not looking at this until February 2018.
Wow.
So it's still quite a ways out. But what is cool is we're getting kind of the introduction in Civil War. We've got hints in Age of Ultron of one of the main villains of Black Panther.
Claw.
Andy Serkis's character. Yeah.
Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Black Panther, I'll get you!
Next time.
He just opens the chair and it's just the empty hand with the bomb.
Yes. So true. And speaking about Civil War, so I don't know if you saw today, they kind of officially announced Civil War Part 2, a Marvel comic event written by Brian Michael Bendis.
Nice. That's a good pull. He's a great writer.
Yeah. I like his stuff, his old stuff on Avengers and his stuff. I haven't read any of the Invincible Iron Man, but I'm hearing good things on it that he's doing now. And he's been doing the Guardians run for a little bit, and I've quite liked his work. So he's a big vet when it comes to writing Marvel events. Secret Invasion, Age of Ultron, House of M. So he's got some clout to him. I think it's gonna be good. It comes out May 2016, so
okay,
right in line with the movie, so.
Didn't they do that previously with Ultron? They released a Ultron comic around the time Age of Ultron.
Yeah, Rage of Ultron. It was like a trade or a graphic novel, I think.
Nice.
But yeah, it looks exciting. I think it's the 4 or 5 issue run they did in Secret Wars, kind of revisiting a retake on the Civil War was quite good. I really enjoyed that kind of mini series that they had. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be another great event. And there's one image released of the Invincible Iron Man and Falcon fighting. So it looks like it's going to be the head-to-head there, not so much Steve Rogers.
Nice. Kind of change it up. We've seen the Iron Man versus Cap, so it's nice to get a change. Did they announce how many issues it's going to be?
No, but I can probably... It's got to be probably 6+, I would say.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Plus your tie-ins. I'm not sure if it's going to be a tie-in of just Invincible Iron Man and the Cap books, or we're going to see a wider kind of tie-in of an entire MCU thing. So being the scale of it, I'm assuming we're going to probably see many more tie-ins than just kind of a small crossover event. But who knows? We'll see. I guess information is going to kind of fall out of that coming in the next month or two or a few. So we'll probably get lots of information at the upcoming cons and stuff like that.
Great. I look forward to reading it, and maybe we can even do a review about that.
Yeah, I think we should. I think maybe it's going to be harder to do, I think, kind of individual issue reviews and stuff like that. But maybe if we pick, a DC or a Marvel event each year, or however many come out, and just try to go at them and give reviews, and maybe not so issue by issue, but kind of maybe as it comes to a culmination or something big happens, we can just go through that in a bit more detail, and just review and see if we put it as a recommend or not.
Great. I think our 9 viewers would really appreciate that.
They would indeed.
XFL ratings, folks. XFL ratings.
We'll get them up.
Exactly.
It's the first episode, still trying to find our footing.
Yeah.
I think we're on our way here. We're already at episode 2. That's 2 more than we had done, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of underground. We're underneath everything, just kind of pulling the strings. So, we're going to slowly but surely get up there.
Yes, that is the hope. Get back at some news here. So, the filming of the next Netflix series, Luke Cage, is underway. A few unofficial images were released.
Oh, is that the guy from Mortal Kombat who's like the actor?
Sunjay. we gotta figure things out here.
Isn't that him? And he has the sunglasses, and he's supposed to be Jean-Claude Van Damme. That's him, right?
Isn't that Johnny Cage?
Oh yeah, close enough. Or is it Nicolas Cage?
Okay, it's funny you say that, because every time I kept saying, when we were watching Jessica Jones, my wife and myself, I kept saying, oh my god, that's Luke Cage. Oh, he's wearing the yellow shirt. And, oh, he's doing this. And, he gets in the fight and he's got the impenetrable skin. And my wife goes, oh, and he'd pop back on the screen. Oh, look, there's Nick Cage. And I was just like, oh.
Truly horrifying. Nicolas Cage, he wouldn't have made a good Superman, but he would have made a great Luke Cage.
Yeah, he fits a character profile to a T.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, it's that hairline.
Yeah, oh yeah. And the eyeballs that are crazy.
Exactly. But in some of the photos we did, and these are spoilers, so if you're waiting and not looking at these images, we do see Claire Temple and Misty Knight. Claire Temple's from the Daredevil series.
Okay, yeah.
She plays Night Nurse. She also made an appearance in Jessica Jones.
Nice.
So we're seeing kind of those ties already. I'm happy to see this series on the way, because Luke Cage was probably the character I like the most in Jessica Jones. Each time he was in an episode, I really enjoyed it, and I was hoping he'd be in the next one. So I'm really looking forward to this series. At that, we're kind of working towards this Defenders Netflix series, so it's a big crossover. And one piece of that puzzle that had been missing was Iron Fist.
Okay, yeah.
And they announced today, actually, that they found a showrunner for Iron Fist. So the history of this thing's kind of been stuck in a bit of limbo. They seem to have had issues getting it off the ground, finding a story, finding a showrunner, kind of trying to how to integrate it into kind of this darker toned portion of the MCU. But this guy named Scott Buck, so I guess he did some Dexter series and a few other shows, and it looks like they're getting it off the ground, which is positive, which is good. So Iron Fist, again, he's not a character I'm incredibly familiar with. The only time I've really read him was in the AVX series from 2012.
Okay,
he
yeah.
played a bit of a role in that. But I'm excited to get another character from Marvel, because these are kind of characters that we maybe would never get in the movies, or they would be, a phase 6 or 7 kind of character, and having these kind of in the darker, grittier side of the MCU is pretty cool. And working towards this kind of overall Defenders crossover Netflix series is really cool.
So, DC is doing it a little bit differently. Their TV shows are not connected to the movies in any way. But Marvel, the movies and the TV shows are connected. Do you have a preference for which one you prefer?
Well, I really do enjoy the idea that there is kind of this, continuum within both universes. That, the Netflix shows and even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that, they have very loose ties. So they'll acknowledge the fact that there was an alien invasion, or that Avengers Tower is in New York, or, they'll feel the effects of Winter Soldier. I really like that kind of tie. It kind of gives me my Marvel fix, and I kind of get all giddy when I see these references. Like, oh my god, they just referred to Hulk and Jessica Jones, or just referred to Cap and Jessica Jones, and they referred to, in Daredevil, is one of the big threads was how Hell's Kitchen got, pretty wrecked from the alien invasion.
Oh, that's nice.
I really enjoy that stuff. But at that too, the TV shows seemingly get the lesser characters, particularly in the villain sense. But we are seeing some very, very good villains in the Netflix series, actually, which is nice. Some well-developed villains, which is something that the movies aren't doing as well. They don't seem to have the time to particularly develop the villains maybe to the extent that they do, like a Kingpin or a Purple Man that they did in Jessica Jones. Really good stuff.
I think that's just indicative of movies and TVs nowadays. I mean, TV shows, you can really go and delve deep into each character. You have probably 20 hours of screen time. Movies, you got to condense it down into 2. So, I mean, TV shows, you're allowed to show more and go into more detail. And I think it really rounds out certain characters. That's why you're seeing some of the best TV shows of all time being created pretty recently, actually. Yeah. So, I mean, that's great. Yeah, we love it. More TV shows, more movies, the better, right?
And actually, interestingly enough, there was an interview with Anthony Russo, one of the co-directors of Civil War and then eventually Infinity War. And he's actually asked the question if Infinity War, being that it's this massive, almost cosmic spanning movie, are we going to see the Netflix characters in particular? Are we going to see them integrated into the movies? And the answer he gave was, it's complicated.
Oh.
So I guess with the recent divide of Marvel Studios from Marvel Entertainment itself, so I guess Kevin Feige now answers directly to the head of Disney, that there does seem to be that integrating these 2 universes is getting harder and harder to do because they're controlled by 2 different groups. So the interview I read didn't sound overly optimistic that we were going to get kind of this combination. We're going to see Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage kind of showing up in Infinity War. I would love to see, like, even if they pan to Hell's Kitchen and those characters are fighting some of Thanos' army or something, I think that would, even just like a 2-second acknowledgement and then it gets picked up back in the TV series, I think that would be really, really cool.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I really hope they do something like that. I'm not going to hold my breath for it, but it would be certainly something that I'm going to look out for.
Yeah, and just continue the TV thread. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., again, I'm loving this show right now. Before, it was really dependent on the movies. It was, an event would happen in Avengers or Winter Soldier and stuff like that. Now it's kind of seemingly paving its own way. We get an Inhuman storyline, Secret Warrior storyline, even some cosmic stuff. We were getting some hints of Kree and all that kind of stuff. So the Marvel TV is great right now, and I'd go check out, ever since you could start really at the Winter Soldier episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and just go forward with that. And it's one of these things I get my Marvel fix every week from it. And so it's got loose ties and all that, so it's good stuff.
Awesome. Check it out.
Yep, and X-Men Apocalypse.
Oh, yes.
Looks like we're going to get a trailer with Star Wars.
Oh, I can't wait for this one. People have been hyping Batman vs. Superman and Civil War. This one is flying under the radar. This one might actually be the best of the 3. We have 3 different separate cinematic universes. We have DC Cinematic Universe at Warner Brothers, the Marvel one at Disney, and now we have the X-Men one, or we always had the X-Men one at Fox. And I think, the X-Men ones have been very solid and very underrated. There's only been 2 bad ones. X3, which was awful, especially coming off that great cliffhanger in X2, and then the first Wolverine movie, which was probably... They should have just renamed it Wolverine Yelling at the Sky and Ripping His Shirt. Like, it was ridiculous. I don't even know what they were going with that, but it was horrible.
That movie almost killed Deadpool.
Yeah, I mean, it almost killed the unkillable Wolverine as well.
Yeah, this is true. Because Deadpool is another one that's flying under the radar, right?
Yeah, that comes out in February.
So it's getting close.
Fox seems to be expanding their universe. They're releasing Deadpool and then Gambit as well. Yeah. And then they're finalizing the Wolverine trilogy.
And they seem to be trying to find their own niche with stuff, because they've seemingly gone more the adult route, dropping the F-bombs, and with Deadpool itself, rated R. Like, when was the last time we got a rated R comic book movie?
I can't even remember. So which universe do you like better? The X-Men cinematic universe or the Marvel one?
Well, you know my answer on this already. It's the Marvel one.
Yeah.
The X ones, I remember seeing the X ones in theaters, like particularly X1, X2, and, we have to give a lot of credit to those movies for really kickstarting even the idea of an ensemble movie, a superhero ensemble movie, because you kind of got Bryan Singer kind of developing the idea of having, 8 to 10 characters and giving somewhat individual storylines, but also tying it up. So I give the credit there, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe was really what took that formula and blew it up and made this kind of a universe-spanning thing. And I think X-Men, kind of combining the old and the new, the rebooted, or I guess soft reboot, whatever you want to call it, That was great there, what they did, and kind of tying into Days of Future Past. And now going forward with X-Men Apocalypse, it's great stuff, and I'm happy that actually the X-Men universe is separate from the Marvel, because we wouldn't be getting all of these movies if they're all at Marvel.
Completely agree. If we might have got the X-Men movies, but then we wouldn't have got the secondary characters. There's no way they would have made an Ant-Man movie.
No.
Guardians of the Galaxy, there's no way they would have done it. They would have just been like, okay, we'll make X-Men movie then.
Exactly, and I think having them at different studios, even Spider-Man too, he's back at Marvel now, and he's being integrated into the universe. But if X-Men and Spider-Man and say even your Hulks and that were all at the same studio, we probably wouldn't even be getting a Cap movies or Thor movies, and like you said, Guardians and Ant-Man. We wouldn't be getting this expansive universe, but now we're getting all of it. We're getting our Deadpools, our X-Men, and then now we're seeing the explosion of the DCU slate, and it's great stuff. I'm really happy. It's like you said, it's the golden age of comic book movies. We're in a really good time. We're really lucky.
Oh, totally agree. Out of the X-Men movies, my favorite is probably either Days of Future Past or X2. Which one is your favorite?
I'm going to go with X2.
Wow.
I love the Nightcrawler stuff.
That was probably the best stuff in the whole X-Men universe right there.
Yeah, it's like the opening scene in the White House is great, and that's one of the best opening scenes in a movie, in a comic book movie. I love that. And it kind of hits the nostalgic, but I remember seeing that in theaters, and again, it was one of the big tentpole kind of the originator of these can be quality movies. These can have good narrative to them, great character development, and they actually be something more than just kind of like people punching each other in the face.
Oh, totally. It seemed like Fox, when they went into the first X-Men movie, were kind of a little tentative. They didn't spend the big budget. Then when they made X2, they just jumped right in. They made it excellent. I mean, there's nothing bad you can say about X2. It's one of the best comic book movies of all time, I'd say. Top 5, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
So coming up next, we're going to talk about Thor Ragnarok. The big news was that it's been confirmed that Hulk is going to be in the movie. Good idea or bad idea?
I think it's a good idea. I'm still really curious how they're going to get Hulk into space. I know they kind of ended Age of Ultron with this kind of cliffhanger. Is Hulk, where's Hulk? And then they kind of give the impression that he's crashed or whatever. But are they just going to have him pull up in the joystick and he ends up in space? Is Thor going to come down and get him? And when does this movie take place? Probably at the same time as Civil War. Because really, I'm looking at this, and you basically have to remove Thor and Hulk from Civil War.
They're too powerful. Yeah. Whoever has them on their side would definitely win.
Or you'd have to roll a Red Hulk or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to counterbalance it. So I think it's interesting. It seems like it's being, like, for me, that's why they're doing it. They're kind of getting Hulk out of here, avoiding this question as to where's Hulk, where's Thor, sort of thing. But I think it's a cool idea. Like, they had some good chemistry both in Age of Ultron, but also more particularly in Avengers. We kind of had a couple good scenes with them together. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what capacity Hulk's going to be in it.
I have a theory. So I think what happens, so Ragnarok refers to the apocalypse in Norse mythology. In the comic books, they battle a character named Surtur, which is kind of like the Norse devil. And so I'm thinking Thor, Odin, and Loki all team up, but they still can't defeat him. But they have just enough power to bring one character over to help him. And so Thor thinks, and he's like, well, the strongest one I know from the Avengers is the Hulk.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to pull Hulk, and it's just going to be Hulk, Thor, Odin, and Loki in Asgard, just kicking ass. I think it's going to be great. You're going to get a lot of great action sequences, and the Thor movies have been okay, but they definitely haven't been as good as the Cap or Iron Man movies. This is their chance to, join the upper echelon and probably be maybe the best Thor movie that they've done.
Yeah, Feige called this Thor's Winter Soldier, basically, that Ragnarok is going to have the same effect on the MCU that Winter Soldier did.
Wow.
So it should be interesting to see what they come up with here, and maybe they go a bit darker because we're talking about apocalypse in Asgard, and so I'm curious about this. It'll be interesting to see once we start getting maybe a bit update on our premise, or even some set photos or something like that. I know they're not going to film this for a few months yet, but really interested and really looking forward to seeing a little more tidbits coming out in the news about this in the next year or so.
Awesome. Can't wait to see more and see a trailer and see some set pictures.
Yeah, it should be good. Okay, so we are just over a week away
You ready?
From Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
You got your Chewbacca costume already?
I cannot believe that we are this close to it. You know, the world premieres December 14th in LA. And it's really, you know, I'm seeing this as the return of the franchise that defined blockbusters.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, we're coming off a 10-year hiatus. I never thought we were going to get an episode 7.
Wow.
I never thought we were going to get more movies, let alone this massive slate of movies that we're getting kind of every year. I'm hoping you don't get oversaturated with it, but, you know, I'm going to take it for now.
It's better than the alternative where there's no good movies or no movies coming out for Star Wars, so...
Exactly. You know, we have our tickets already. We got the IMAX 7 p.m. showing on Thursday, so we actually bought 18 tickets.
Wow. We'll be the ones in the 1912 podcast t-shirts, so if you happen to see us in theaters, drop by and say hi.
High fives across the aisle. But then sit down. I need to watch the previews. So, you know, this is really something that there's so much buzz behind. You know, there's people at work that I didn't even know were Star Wars fans they're talking about. They're going on opening night. My family, I got a bunch of family members when I go back for the holidays. They're like, we bought a whole bunch of Star Wars tickets. We're going. So I've already got my first 3 showings booked.
Wow. You know, Star Wars is one of those movies that transcends generations. Everyone loves it from 80 to 8. You know, it's just one of those movies that everyone can enjoy. It's just brings out the kid in everyone, I guess.
It did, and it's you know, it's one of these movies that's truly a huge phenomenon. You know, it's had huge impacts not only on popular culture but filmmaking itself, right? You know, it really spawned this special effects era. You know, what they invented and what they were able to come up with for the original trilogy. You know, and the importance that this really demonstrated on franchises. You know, they produced the model and the formula for trilogies. You know, they set the foundation for how you merchandise a movie. And this leads to myself being a huge Star Wars collector. And like Sunjay said, like this movie reaches into every age demographic.
Oh, yeah.
You know, across the board. The love for this just spans generations. And I'm so happy that we get to experience this. Like, I'm almost emotional about it. Like, you know, to me personally, this is so much more than a movie. You know, it's an experience. You know, there's a community behind it. It's really this, you know, passion for me that stretches way back to my childhood. You know, for me, like in the most purest sense, like the word nostalgia kind of always crops up, and I'm so optimistic for this. And you know, I just have this kind of in the pit of my stomach. I just have this feeling that it's going to be a real return to form of the franchise. You know, I'm not a hater of the prequels, but I do hold the original trilogy to a much higher standard, and this just feels like it's going to be, you know, Star Wars again, and I can't wait.
So, you know, I'm going to come out of the not watching Star Wars closet here, but I haven't seen them yet. And I know that's going to come as a shock to a lot of people. It's not that I haven't wanted to see them, it's just for one thing or another, I just never got around to watching them. So I ended up picking them all up, and I wanted to ask you, Tim, you know, as someone who's never seen any of them, there's 2 schools of thought. Should I watch 4, 5, 6, the originals from the 70s and 80s, and then the prequels, just how everyone else watched it? Or should I watch it how, you know, in episode order? 1, 2, 3, watch the prequels, and then watch the originals 4, 5, 6, so that way, you know, in terms of quality, they only get better.
I think you have to go back and start with 4, 5, 6, and then the prequels. There's so much more of kind of world building in the originals. You know, you get the understanding of what the Jedi are, and then, you know, everyone knows kind of the big spoiler in it. But if you watch 1, 2, 3, 4, you're gonna have basically the you know, one of the biggest cinematic reveals of all time spoiled for you. And I think you just have to go back and kind of relive them and watch them as everyone else watched them. Because like I said, you know, the prequels are full of CG. You know, the character development isn't as good. The stories, you know, I do enjoy the stories, but they're not the same kind of quality, I would say. You know, my attachment to the characters in the original trilogies is quite high. And I think going back and watching, you know, starting with A New Hope and getting into Empire, which is my personal favorite, and Return of the Jedi, you know, that gets you your Star Wars foundation. Then going back, you can kind of, you have a feel for some of the characters in there, and you understand it, I think, a bit more. And you need that foundation of those 4, 5, 6 to really get what's probably going to happen in episode 7. So I'd start there, because if you don't have the time to go watch the prequels, that's something you can always revisit, but you need those 3 foundation, that original trilogy, to get what's going on in episode 7.
We are going to do a Star Wars episode in the new year, but we didn't want to rush it or, leave something out. So look for that in the new year, and we're going to really delve deep into Star Wars mythology. I don't think there's any franchise that elicits as much passion as Star Wars. There's some that come close. Star Trek, Lord of the Rings are kind of close. People have a large following of those. But I just feel like Star Trek is number 1. I just don't see anything that...
You mean Star Wars?
Sorry.
Whoa, that's a big nerd Freudian slip.
I actually do really like Star Trek, so...
The reboots are good, yeah. And again, it's getting into Star Trek. There's so much lore and mythology and background to all this kind of stuff. At least the barrier for entry into Star Wars isn't quite as high as it is for Star Trek, particularly if you're trying to understand a whole universe.
But Trekkies, don't despair. We promise we will do a Star Trek heavy episode as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Really love, with J.J. Abrams doing the Star Trek ones, it kind of ties in perfectly that he would do Star Wars. He did a really good job with those, so I'm really looking forward to see what he does with Star Wars.
Yes. So let's quickly talk box office predictions.
Okay.
So this thing looks like it's tracking off the map.
Well, it's got our $20, so
it's
more than $40
plus
on mine.
the other 18 that I paid for, that I still haven't got all the money for.
If you're listening to this and you haven't paid...
Pay me. So, again, we're talking massive block. This thing's going to play like a summer blockbuster.
It's going to make Jurassic World look like Jurassic Park 3.
Well, that's an interesting question. Do you think is going to dethrone Jurassic World from this year?
Absolutely. And here's why. I just feel like Jurassic World came out and it was a big hit, but the summer competition was huge. Star Wars, when that comes out in December, what's it going up against? Joy. It's going up against Sisters. They look like kind of good movies, but they're not $150 million movies. So Star Wars really has nothing big coming up against it until January, so it's got about 2-3 weeks alone where it's gonna, and it also has the Christmas break. So a lot of people are going to be watching it over winter holidays, and it's going to be something that we've never experienced before. I'm calling it right now. Is it going to be okay, so with inflation, it's probably going to make more money than the original Star Wars. But is it going to have more people going to see it?
So, yes, interesting. So, when you talk about inflation, so the unadjusted domestic gross for Star Wars is $1.5 billion. Sorry, the adjusted domestic gross. So, for inflation, all that. So, you have to sell twice as many tickets as they're probably going to sell domestically to reach that. So, that's probably something we're not going to get to.
No.
That's for the original Star Wars. But, so we've talked, I agree. I think it's going to dethrone Jurassic World as the biggest opening weekend of all time. But the next kind of echelon is, will it dethrone Avatar or Titanic as the biggest movies of all time?
Is James Cameron attached to this? Is he directing it?
Not even a little. But interestingly enough, so Avatar and Titanic both released the exact same weekend. One in 97, one in 2009 as The Force Awakens.
Wow.
December 18th and December 19th.
Wow. That's karma. That's destiny.
Yeah. So you're talking about, can this movie sustain itself well into January? Like, it runs up against Hateful Eight and a concussion movie with Will Smith, and there's the new Point Break movie and all that. So it runs up against some competition. But will it run like a Titanic that had, I think, 12 or 15 consecutive weekends at number one? Avatar was, I think 10 or 8 or something like that consecutive weekends. It needs this. It's going to play like a summer blockbuster. Humongous opening weekend. Steep drop off.
Really?
I think you can't sustain, like, if you open 200 million plus, how can you sustain any more than a 50%? Like,
that's true.
That drop off is going to be huge. Like, I think Avatar opened to like 75 million, and Titanic was, in the 30s maybe. But they just had a sustained. They had moderate opening weekends, but then had $25 million weekends for 10 weekends straight.
Yeah.
And then, Avatar's the biggest domestic. and the biggest globally. And Jurassic World holds the biggest kind of opening weekend globally, opening weekend domestically. The big thing here is, and this is my only kind of reservation for calling it to beat Jurassic World globally, is that it doesn't open in China until January.
Ah, I see. Yeah.
And that's a humongous. That market's almost as big as the States now.
I think it's bigger. I mean, you get some of the overseas numbers, it's pretty comparable, if not bigger nowadays.
With all that in mind, here's my prediction.
All right, it's on recorded, so Tim can't go back on this.
So, opening weekend domestic gross, so that's US and Canada.
Okay.
I'm saying $230 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is about 15 million or so more than Jurassic World. And I'm calling worldwide just over 300 million. That's without China.
Okay, so...
that's under what Jurassic World would have done. Oh, sorry, that's the international, not the worldwide. So international, so outside of the States and Canada.
Right.
Just over 300 million. And that's without China. So that's going to be a big feat. I think it'll go second highest all time. I do not think it'll get to Avatar.
You think it'll pass Titanic?
Yeah.
See, I'm going to say opening weekend prediction, North American box office, 250 million.
250. Ups the game.
And then internationally, not including the US, 350. For a total of $600 million opening weekend. Put it in your bank. It's guaranteed. I'm calling it right now. $600 million opening weekend. Heck, if 99% of the movies would be happy to get what Star Wars is going to get opening weekend, that's how huge this is going to be.
Yeah. But are we setting ourselves up for disappointment here? If this movie makes, say, like a moderate Age of Ultron, 191 million in its opening weekend, is this going to be viewed as the disappointment that Age of Ultron was?
I mean, that's tough standards. Whenever you hit 198 million and you're viewed as a disappointment, I don't think it will, but I think it has one thing going against it in terms of beating Avatar, and that's just movies don't last as long in theaters as they used to. There's so many new tentpole projects that are coming up all the time. To give you an idea, if Star Wars were to equal Titanic or Avatar's number of weeks at number one, it would run into Batman vs. Superman. And I just don't see that happening.
No, it's not gonna.
No.
Not gonna run that long.
And if it beats Batman vs. Superman opening week, then I'm never going to a movie again. I just quit. I'm sorry.
It's not gonna have near the run. It's gonna have I think heavy drop off, but it's gonna be super heavy front load ended.
I think that depends too on the quality of the film. If we get a movie that's loved and people really, really dig it, you're gonna see a little bit longer. But if you get a movie that kind of is just average, yeah, just like it's okay, I think that's really gonna hurt it. I think people will be a little bit brutal towards it because we built it up so much that even if it's just average, people are gonna say like, oh, it wasn't as good as I was expecting. And I think the word of mouth moves so much faster than ever before. With Twitter and Facebook now, if you love a movie, you go in and you tell your friends that, or if you hate a movie, you go in and then it spreads. It can kill box office and movie expectations quickly.
Well, I think we saw that with Age of Ultron this year, and then we saw the reverse with Guardians and Winter Soldier the year before.
Absolutely.
Guardians came out huge, and it was supposed to do a third of what it did, but positive word of mouth got it there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's going to it's what is going to prolong the Star Wars in theaters here. But I still think it's going to be huge. And like I said, I cannot wait for this.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be fun. Yeah,
it's going to be good. It's one of these, we're going to get these every year now, but this is the first big one out of the gate. This is going to be an experience. Movie theater is going to be buzzing when we get there. And you sit down and you get the opening music, the opening crawl, and it's just going to be on from there. I cannot wait.
How many loud cheers are we going to get in the showing? I have the over-under at 5.
Yeah, these opening kind of nights, you tend to get more of people that are reacting kind of, outward. You don't see that so much in the following. But, yeah, I think we'll have some pretty intense, people in the audience, pretty intense fans. So I think we're going to get at least the opening crawl when it kind of, you get the music, and then you're going to see Star Wars The Force Awakens come up on the screen, and I think you're going to get big claps and stuff like that. Probably the first time we see Han and Chewie, you're going to get claps and hoots and hollers. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully it doesn't take away from the movie too much, but I think, again, that's just all part of the atmosphere and being there with the people that want to be there, that love to be there, and that have been waiting for this for so long.
Have you ever had someone dress up an opening weekend that you've been to the theater and you've seen someone dress up for opening day?
I've seen people. I've never been with anyone that's cosplayed. I'm much more of every movie I go to, I always rock a t-shirt or whatever. Like I had the Ant-Man t-shirt and the Guardians, and I'm going to have definitely a Force Awakens t-shirt on. So
I'm going to wear a Star Trek t-shirt and see what people say to me.
You'll get just beat up and thrown right out of the theater. People that are coming with us just won't let you in.
I'm going to wear Spock ears and be like, long live and prosper.
Wait, is this the movie I'm supposed to be in?
How long before someone calls me out?
Well, you wouldn't get 10 steps in the theater.
They just take my ticket, rip it up, and be like, just go.
Yeah, and we would remove your nerd card at that again.
It's already been removed twice. I've had 2 instances where people have dressed up. Not that I was with, but we went to see The Dark Knight Rises, the end of the Christopher Nolan trilogy. One person dressed as Bane, the other person dressed as Batman, and then they were taking photos with people in the concession. I thought that was pretty cool. And then we went to opening day of Watchmen. And we had a guy who had a cardboard sign around him that said "The end is nigh," and he wore it throughout the whole movie. So if you're listening, sign guy, hats off to you. That was awesome.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see cosplayers, I think. Or at least the fact, I may even slide a lightsaber on my belt, I think this is kind of the time to do it. I'm curious if to let lightsabers into the movie theater, but yeah, you will see cosplayers. You'll see people dressed at least at a minimum in the Jedi robes and stuff like that.
Hopefully, if you're wearing a Jedi robe, wear something underneath it. I cannot stress that enough. Please. So are we at the comic shop?
Yes, we are. Let's go in and check out some comics.
All right, now let's move on to our box office rundown. All right, and now welcome to our next segment, the box office roundup, where we give you a quick roundup of the top 5 box office movies this weekend. Starting in at number 5, Spectre. Only bringing in $5.4 million, brings its total to $184 million. Tim, do you feel like this is underperformed?
I think it's probably performing, a little bit under maybe expectations coming off Skyfall and that. But again, we kind of discussed it last week. Maybe there's a little fatigue when it comes to this this particular portrayal of Bond and that. So we'll just see what they come up with next. They're probably going to have to change the formula a bit here, I'd imagine, going forward.
It's made $800 million worldwide, so it's kind of hard to say a movie like that underperforms.
Okay, I really didn't realize I'd been killing it that much. So yeah, it's going to be a Skyfall level sort of. So yeah, it's performing, I guess, really good internationally.
Yeah, just North America seems to have underperformed. This is probably the last time Daniel Craig is playing Bond. There's been rumors of Idris Elba taking over the role. I think that's great. I think that bring in new life to the character. He's so badass. My only problem with that is that Idris Elba then would have everything. I mean, he's so badass. I mean, he was in The Wire. He's now Bond. I mean, how is he going to give regular guys like us a chance? Idris Elba, you're taking too much. Come on, man. Share a little bit.
Yeah, come on, Heimdall.
Coming in at number 4, The Good Dinosaur, $15.5 million. I think it's kind of slow numbers. Worldwide of only $131 million. Not as great as other Pixar numbers. Any thoughts?
No. But one thing I do want to clarify. I guess last week I was, in fact, incorrect. So I was right to be skeptical of myself when stating facts that aren't true. Good Dinosaur was the second Pixar movie to not debut at number 1. Inside Out, which was a great movie, unfortunately went up against Jurassic World's second weekend.
It's kind of hard to beat one of the highest grossing films of all time in just a second weekend.
Yeah, so it suffered from that. So again, I'll probably check it out at some point, but it's not something that I'm gonna run out and see.
Awesome. Coming in at number 3, Creed, $15.5 million. Pretty good numbers for that movie. $65 million in North America. And we talked a bit about the director being a good fit for Black Panther. So I think that's great. The movie looks great. I'm going to have to check it out. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, me too. Looking forward to it.
Coming in at number 2, the horror film Krampus. Now, I'm a big horror guy. Tim, are you into horror?
No, man. I can't do it. I don't sleep. I don't enjoy it. It's not really my cup of tea.
All right, so this one is going out to all you horror fans out there. Brought in $16 million. It's pretty good. It's already made back its budget. It's got a ton of good reviews. People are saying it's the best Christmas horror movie since Black Christmas. So definitely check this out if you're a horror fan. I'll probably be watching it this weekend. It looks awesome. It looks fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but also looks pretty scary. So this one is definitely worth checking out.
Well, it's funny. I saw the trailer for this thing, and it's got a couple of comedy actors in it, and it kind of starts off like I was like, oh, I am a sucker for these kind of traditional Christmas comedies and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this looks great. It's going to be fun. And then it goes really dark, really quick. And I was like, what just happened?
Can you imagine like a family that just watches the first half of that trailer, brings their little kids into it, like, oh, come on, little Susie, we're going to go see Krampus, and then just them going into the theater, sitting down and just not expecting this movie? I think that'd be hilarious.
Is there a Christmas movie out this year?
Yeah, with Seth Rogen.
Oh, yeah.
Although I don't really feel like that's a Christmas movie.
No, but it does have that sort of...
Yeah.
It gives me that warm feeling. I like stuff like that. I think it's funny.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Like, it's like when you watch the Santa Claus, it's kind of like a nice hot cup of cocoa with a blanket around you and the fireplace on. Just something heartwarming about that.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Coming in at number 1, the Juggernaut Hunger Games. $18.6 million, a total of $227 million. Pretty good. But with Star Wars coming out soon, I doubt this movie gets to $250 million. Maybe a little bit disappointing, but they did split it up, and the previous one was not as strong as the first two. And plus trilogies, the last ones are always the worst. So, honestly, I'm not surprised by it. Good franchise. One of the better ones that have come out that kind of sparked this dystopian young adult future. So I think it's been a game changer and one of the best franchises come around in a long time.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. They're fun movies. I don't think they're going to be something that you look back on, way into the future and be like, this really is, the best movie franchise of all time. But they're good. They're good. They're good for a watch. And, I'd write the books are great too.
I'm just waiting for the day when they remake it and I'll have to be like, oh, I remember when this came out.
It was so much better.
All right, well, this does it for our box office roundup. Now on to our next segment, New to Nerd.
All right, so this week for New to Nerd, we're going to be talking about boards, bags, and comic storage. This is a very important part of comic book collecting, particularly because, a comic book in itself is relatively fragile.
It's true. It's like a newborn. I mean, you got to cradle it, you got to pack it, you got to put tape on the back, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how you take care of a baby. No, and it's...
Disclaimer, please do not put your newborn babies in Mylar bags. We do not condone that here in the Nerd Room.
Very true. Listen to what he has to say. But at that, it's, if you're... When I first got into comic book collecting, I didn't really get the concept of boarding and bagging something. I kind of just had the comic book stacked up. And one day I was kind of looking at it, I'm like, yeah, they're starting to kind of warp in the middle. And, I started to really going to get into it a bit heavier. And then I was like, there's clearly a way to store these. So I went and checked out the local comic book shop, bought a, thing of boards and a thing of bags, and, started putting them in and keeping them more as in pristine condition. And even going into the comic book shop, when I buy a comic, and I think you've adopted this a bit more too, I kind of look at all the corners, I turn around, look at the back, I kind of flip through to make sure nothing's bent or, there's no kind of folds in any of the pages.
Oh, it's so true. There's nothing worse than when you look and then you pick one up and then you take it home and you look and you're like, oh man, that corner's bent. And then you look, it's be a beautiful cover, but the only thing you fixate on is that little corner bend. Yeah, and it's something no one had ever noticed. Like, I've done stuff too, like I'll be walking and I slipped and I dropped my bag and 3 of my comic books fell out into the snow and it was kind of like, so I went back and bought new ones. Awesome. But with the boards and that, what you're looking for, if you go to your local comic book shop and just ask them, I'm looking for modern boards and bags, and that's what... So comic books also come in different sizes, particularly the Silver Age comic books are a bit larger, so they don't fit in kind of the modern boards and bags. But what you're looking for is something that's acid-free, and then you're just looking for the protective slipcase that goes over it. And that's just for kind of your average, everyday sort of comic book. There are ways to store comic books, maybe that are worth more, or that you're kind of... you hold in in higher regards and stuff like that, as if they have a cool cover, or they have the introduction of a new character, first appearance as it be. These are things that maybe you want to keep in a bit better condition and avoid any potential for getting wrecked or ruined in that. No, I agree. And when you have them bagged and boarded, I like to put a little bit of tape on the back just to seal it shut, so that way dirt particles or dust doesn't get in. Another thing is when you're storing them, there are two different box sizes. There's the large box, and then there's the short box. Now, the large box will typically hold about 250 comics, and a short box holds about 100. Now, I started off in the long boxes. It made more sense economically. Why would I pay about the same price for a box that can hold half as much as one? But then I realized that the boxes were too long, and the comic books kept falling down. And then one day I noticed that I had actually severely bent one of my comics. So after that day, I've been nothing but a short box guy. Size doesn't...
I had a feeling you were going down this path as soon as you started that sentence. But continue.
When you're collecting comic books, size doesn't matter in terms of your box. So,
Okay, that is 100% staying in there. But again, continue.
We are mature adults here, Tim. I'm trying to have a mature conversation.
Yes, about how to store our giant comic book collection. So another thing that I just want to highlight a bit here is when it comes to storage, big thing for me, I don't use long or short boxes. I'm always looking, like I have mine in a separate room, and I kind of put a little bit of weight behind not only the accessibility of it, but also the aesthetic look of it in the room. I don't like the look of kind of having boxes stacked up. So actually I keep mine in there's a couple IKEA drawers that you can get that I keep mine in. I just kind of reinforce the sides so we don't get any slipping or bending. And then I've got them all stored in I can't remember what it's called. It's kind of that thing that has like the 8 squares in it. And it's got these little black boxes that you can pull in and out of it.
Yep.
And I keep mine in there. So as far as, storage capacity, one of those small bins can hold about 100 comics or something like that. And I just like the way it looks. It's kind of a bit more subtle in a room. And so that's how I generally store my comic books.
Nice. The one thing with comic books is it'd be nice if you could actually display them, because some of the covers are just amazing. So it's unfortunately they haven't come up with a way that you can display each cover separately. If anyone has any ideas out there, feel free to shoot us an email or shoot us a tweet if you have any suggestions about that.
Yeah, there are some IKEA picture frames that you can get. And for a couple of the comic books I have, I've just kind of slid in a white piece of paper. And it's not shaped to the comic book. The comic book nicely fits in there inside a board and bag. And then you kind of get up in a wall and it keeps it nice and flat. So I've got stuff like Infinity Gauntlet #1, and I got a couple of things, comic books signed by Stan Lee that are up on my wall and stuff like that. So that is an option, but again, it's not ideal.
No.
And then just talking a little bit more. So I think in a future episode, we'll get a little more into kind of the CGC grading and sending your comic books away, and that whole concept. But one thing that you can do for some of your more valuable comics on kind of the cheaper end of it, because getting them graded does cost quite a bit of money. You can get kind of thicker, more rigid acetate slips. So there's a couple comic books that I got where I've got kind of the board and bagged, and then I've got them slipped in this thicker, more protective casing. And then they're just kind of sitting at the end of one of the rows of comic books. And that's just another way to kind of avoid any bending or breaking. And it's pretty economic. So these are kind of cool. You can find them at your local comic book shops. And they work pretty well for keeping, particularly not bending the corners or even the folding. It prevents, if anything were to slip, these things aren't going to slip and fold like you would with, just a normal board and bag.
No, exactly. I have the Batman #1 New 52 issue in one of those, and it just looks great. I mean, it displays nicely. It's protected, so I have no worries about that. And it's just a valuable issue and one that I really enjoy, so I really wanted to protect it.
Excellent. Well, I think that's it for New to Nerd this week.
Yeah, so just remember, when your wife sees your comic book collection and she sees them all in short boxes, just tell her that I said it's okay, go with the short box, size doesn't matter. Alright, in this episode, we're going to start with a Man of Steel review, and then we're going to go through the entire DC cinematic universe. A little bit of our hopes, our most anticipated movies that we're going to rank, and then we're going to go through each one, give our expectations about them, and a little bit of I'll give you a suggestion of what to read if you want to learn more about that character and a potential origin story. So Tim, should we start with the Man of Steel review?
Yeah, I think that we'll go at this. We're not going to do kind of a super, super detailed review, but we'll kind of give kind of a high-level favorite parts, some of the story that's important for Batman vs. Superman, or going in at least, and then just kind of talk about some of the themes and some of the main, I guess, there's a couple real key scenes in there that are met with a bit of, contention, I'd almost say, in the nerd world. So we'll get into that, but I guess maybe we should just start from the top and then work our way down.
Sure, sounds good. So Man of Steel kicked off the DC Cinematic Universe. When this movie came out, a lot of people didn't know if it was actually just a standalone film or if they were going to build a whole universe behind it. Luckily for us, soon after at Comic-Con, they had announced that Batman vs. Superman would happen right after. So this is the first film that kicks off the entire DC Cinematic Universe, similar to Iron Man in Marvel or X-Men 1 in the X-Men movies.
Yeah, and this was something, when they first announced it, David Goyer wrote it, Nolan produced it, and he had a heavy hand, I think, in the initial kind of script before Zack Snyder came on. So when I first heard about this, I thought that they were building into the Dark Knight universe. They seem to be running with a similar tone, kind of this more grounded, bit more grittier, darker take on Superman, and not even using the term Superman like they did with the Dark Knight, right? They used Man of Steel here.
Yep.
So I thought they're really building that universe up. But then it came out that actually this is kind of, like you're saying, this is a first step into the DC Cinematic Universe.
It's true. One thing I liked about this, though, is at the time it truly felt like a standalone film. Nowadays it seems like every comic book movie is interconnected, and that can be good. But I feel like this one truly tried just to make this movie special, and I think they actually achieved it.
Yeah, it to me it was really attempting at making it, definitely a standalone, but it was building even maybe a smaller Superman universe. Like there are hints towards things in the future and that in this movie. But yeah, it does have the tendency to a bit stand on its own a bit. And that might even come from the idea that maybe a lot of the ideas at DC weren't fully developed, exactly what they were going to do going forward. And so, building this movie with some potential to move on. But this isn't kind of like your Iron Man 2 or something like that is, at times it's weighed down by trying to build a universe around itself.
Mm-hmm.
It does have that tendency to introduce characters, but it's not, weighted or kind of, you're not getting this huge influx of trying to universe build around kind of Superman and at the cost of the story. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened in Iron Man, but some of Iron Man 2 particularly kind of suffers from that a bit.
No, totally. So I just recently watched it yesterday. It was my 4th time watching it, and I truly believe it gets better with each viewing. Zod was amazing. I find like he literally chews the scenery every time he's in it. I loved him in it. The part where he's like, "I will find him, Laura. I will find him." He keeps building and building, and then he snaps, and then he just yells, "I will find him!" Yeah,
and I love that scene from the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And, Michael Shannon playing Zod too, right? It's not a guy that you'd actually pick out of a crowd and say, yeah, that guy should play Zod. He's trying to fill big shoes from the early Superman movies.
That's right, Terrence Stamp. Yeah. Kneel before Zod. Yeah. I mean, iconic. Is there a better line that a villain has ever uttered in a comic book movie?
Well, no, again, iconic. It's, but Zod in here doesn't utter that.
No, I was surprised. He should have.
Yeah. But I think, maybe this is them showing that this Zod is a little different, right?
Yeah.
Going back to this iconic, I think kind of separating it out, but not using the term Superman, maybe not using some of the iconic lines. Maybe they're trying to pull back and separate themselves from, I guess, the Donner universe or the Donnerverse of Superman, which I think is probably a good idea.
I agree with you, but I think that is part of the reason why critics hated on this film. I think they went in and they expected it to be a Christopher Reeves movie with the Superman who goes in and saves a cat from a tree and, kind of the more 70s Superman. I mean, they tried that with Brandon Routh in Superman Returns, and it was a bomb, and it just wasn't a very good movie. In fact, in the whole movie, he doesn't even punch anything. So a whole Superman movie, I mean, what does he fight Lex and he lifts the island? Like some cool scenes there. Just a miss of a movie, I feel. And so they went in this, and I think they kind of went the other way. They went with the New 52 costume with Superman. They went with him fighting Zod and blowing stuff up. And I think critics kind of were taken back by it. I think that wasn't the movie they went in expecting, especially when you go into the film and the first half an hour takes place in Krypton. I think not a lot of people were expecting that. I, for one, certainly didn't expect that. I thought Krypton would be maybe a 5-minute scene, but they actually fleshed out the planet, and they fleshed out his birth parents and the fight between Zod and his father. I think that was excellent. I mean, at first I was taken back and I didn't like it, but now on repeated viewings, I think it is a great addition to Superman mythology.
Yeah, I really enjoy that opening scene with you have, Zod mounting this massive insurrection, and you kind of have your understanding about Krypton and how the species itself is more or less failing. You got kind of a lot of this kind of Roman Empire. We expanded out, to the far reaches of the universe, and now have sucked all back in, and are just kind of out on Krypton now, and now the Empire's falling. I thought that was really cool to see that, because realistically they could have had Krypton failing and then just started with Superman or Clark Kent there on the what it was, fishing boat or oil rig or whatever.
Yep.
So they could have done that, but I think going into that, and you're also starting to present yourself with a different universe there immediately, right? Where you're immediately setting yourself apart from what's been done previously. And I think, like you're saying with the critics not liking this, you have to go in understanding, I think, what they're trying to do. They're presenting this as, this is the 21st century Man of Steel. They're darker. This is kind of more Nolan-esque. So they're trying to really set a tone with this thing, and kind of almost change not so much the character, but the kind of overall feel. Because when you go back, the Supermans now, when you watch them, the original Donner ones, they're kind of campy. They're great movies still, but like you said with the Brown and Roth ones, they don't stand on their own.
No, I totally agree. This is definitely a modernization of Superman, and you know what? I think it worked. I had a couple of things that I feel like didn't work in this film. One thing that I really hated was the product placement, and nowhere was more evident than in the Smallville fight scene. I counted, he fights, you see, he blows up a 7-Eleven, they crash through an IHOP and a Sears. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I was expecting Superman to come up and fight Zod and be like, how dare you ruin these moderately priced electronics at Sears? I'm taking you down. And not as down as Sears takes their prices. Like, it was ridiculous. Please don't do that for Batman vs. Superman. That is probably my biggest criticism of Man of Steel, was the product placement drove me batty.
But what company, like me personally, if someone's like, hey, I want to put this IHOP in this, you pay me $20 million and we're going to blow this thing up. I don't know. This just doesn't seem like a smart way to be doing product placement.
Yeah.
Just me, but...
Oh, no, I agree. I mean, it kind of does give you a more realistic feel that, they weren't blowing through Smallville gas station or Smallville electronics store. Mm-hmm. But it just kind of felt...
It is obvious.
Yeah, it is very obvious. They didn't hide it. It wasn't something that was like just a background thing or just a one thing. I mean, 3 different stores they go through. Please don't do that in Batman vs. Superman. I mean, especially when you go back and if you watch this film 20 years later... kids might be like, what's Sears? What's IHOP? Like, it kind of takes you out of that universe a bit, and I feel like that was my biggest complaint of the film.
A bit like having cell phones in movies.
Yeah.
Just maybe a bad idea.
Or cars. Yeah, then you go back and look at the cars, you're like, oh man, it really dates it.
So, what do you think of Henry Cavill in the title role here?
Loved him. Yeah. Loved him. My first exposure to him was in the Stardust movie, so that's another Neil Gaiman adaptation. And he's in it just a little bit. Excellent film. If you get a chance, it's based on the Neil Gaiman comic book from Vertigo Comics, I believe. Excellent film. But I think he did wonderful as Superman. I think not as good as Christopher Reeves. I mean, he's only done 1 film where Reeves did 4. But I think he did excellent. He has that look to him. He's my Superman. Whenever I read a comic book with Superman, I use his voice nowadays. And his build is perfect. It's
kind of got that rugged, almost... Certain scenes, he kind of remind me a bit of Wolverine.
Yeah.
With the beard, he's kind of got, big chest and kind of the hair coming out of the costume. And yeah, it was interesting. Kind of a big contrast to Reeves, kind of this clean-cut sort of Superman.
And that's actually one thing they stole from the New 52 reboot, is when Superman first started out in Action Comics in the New 52, he didn't immediately go into becoming a reporter. He had traveled the globe, and I think he was a firefighter at one point in time, and he had the beard, so people didn't really know who he was. So I think that's a great idea, kind of building on the concept of the secret identity, which he really tries to protect, something that Marvel went the other way. And I mean, in their first film, Robert Downey Jr. is just like, whatever, I'm Iron Man, end of film. Great ending, worked for that. But I think DC's going with the more traditional comic book trope of secret identities.
Yeah, well, you see Pa Kent in this, played by Kevin Costner, and I think he did a great job. But you see him really kind of saying to Clark Kent here, like, you know, don't show them who you are until you're ready, until the world is ready. And I thought that was kind of an interesting take. You know, basically, when he talks about when the bus goes into the river or whatever, and he saves him, and he says, well, maybe you should have let him die. And that was in the trailers, actually.
Yep. And
that was kind of a point. It's a different take on Pa Kent.
I think so, but I think he redeems himself in the scene where he dies. Okay, sorry, spoilers, but I mean, you probably should have known that. This is over a year old. We talked about it in episode 1. This is past 2 months. Spoilers are to be expected. But in the scene where Pa Kent dies, he dies saving the family dog from the car. And there's a scene where right before he dies, Clark could have went and saved him, but he put his hands up. And I think at that moment, that's him telling Clark, you know, I told you, you know, you may have let these people die, or you should have let these people die maybe. But I think that's him acknowledging you can't help who you are. You know, you have the hero in you. You're going to help save people. And I think that was the point of that scene. That's what I got from it anyways. Him kind of acknowledging he was wrong. And, you know, Superman, save his identity, come out when he's ready, but definitely come out and you're going to be the hero that you are.
Yeah, exactly. It was him almost acknowledging the idea that he didn't think that Clark was ready to reveal himself to the world. You know, realistically, you could have come up with something where he kind of sped around and grabbed the dog or whatever, but it was a nice scene. It was a scene that, you know, that needed to happen. You know, this kind of spurs off some motivation later on, and, you know, allows him to kind of develop more as a character.
No, I agree. That was a very powerful scene. I remember it was hard to watch the first time in theaters, but definitely a great scene. Okay, so let's talk about the biggest contention of the movie, the ending. People were going nuts, saying Superman doesn't kill. What is he doing? But he snaps General Zod's neck, snaps him like a Twinkie. What do you think? Should they have killed Zod, or should they have let him live?
Well, this is after they barrel through Metropolis.
True. That's another contention about that. We'll go to that next.
Okay. Well, as far as killing Zod, so I don't have, you know, I think I've only seen Superman 1 and 2. I'm not a big reader of Superman comics, but this scene in particular, I liked it. And the reason I liked it was because, you know, we have Superman creating or performing an act that is out of character, right? So not only are they establishing kind of this new and different Superman, but now they're establishing a remorseful Superman. And I think this is really a way where he can almost self-impose controls on himself. Because when I look at, you know, Batman versus Superman, or really Superman versus anyone that's not Kryptonian, he's just going to punch a hole through their head.
That's right.
And now that he's snapped a neck, he's taken a life on purpose. I think that really, to me, that says, like, this is something where he's going to say, you know, I'm not going to break Batman's neck. I'm not going to, you know, kill these people. I'm going to find a way around doing this. So I think it's kind of a neat way of him saying to himself, I'm never going to kill again. I've done it once. I don't want to do that again. So I'm going to hold back my powers. And I think that makes, you know, him more, you know, not so much on an even scale as far as strength, but as far as the ability to go forward with something. Like he's not going to go forward and just, you know, outright just kill criminals. You know, he's going to have that self-restraint. I kind of like it. You know, I kind of like it. You're defining the character differently. You know, this is something that, you know, yes, it is very contentious, but at the same time, I think it adds a lot of depth to the character.
No, I agree. And that's a good point. The one thing I thought of, though, was Zod always said, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to do this to my dying breath. You know, my whole purpose in life was to protect Krypton. Now that there's no chance of Krypton ever coming back, what does he have? So he's just going to go and inflict as much pain on Superman as he can. I mean, would it be better Superman put him in jail? First off, no jail could hold Zod. And second off, he would just break out, kill more people, and then Superman would have to put him away again. I mean, he was forced. He had no choice. If there was any other option, Superman would have found a way. But unfortunately, there was no other option. He had the his heat vision just about to kill a family. And I think this was Superman kind of, doing whatever it takes to protect humans, showing that, Earth is his new home. Krypton is where he came from, but Earth is his home. Controversial scene, but I think they needed to have it. I think it was a good ad.
Yeah, and it, Zod does say at one point, this doesn't end until one of us are dead.
Yeah, I mean, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's one of the decisions. It was a bold choice.
Mm-hmm.
It really set the tone for the movie and for, future Superman movies. And maybe even the DC Cinematic Universe as a whole. But I think it was a different, but I think a good decision overall. I thought it was a good way to end.
No, I agree.
And really, it's showing that, when you're talking about, saving humanity, it shows that he's willing to do whatever to save, humans, people, whatever, and eventually humanity, right?
Oh, yeah. And people are saying, oh, but he wasn't remorseful. But then as soon as he does it, he drops to his knees and lets out the biggest yell you've ever heard. I mean, clearly this weighed on him. It wasn't a decision he took lightly. He tried with all his might to get Zod to stop, but he couldn't. So, I agree with it. So moving on to the next biggest, I guess you could say, contention about this movie that critics and fans who didn't enjoy the movie would say was the destruction. They felt it was just too much destruction. Metropolis got too destroyed. I mean, there would have been millions of people, thousands of people killed, billions or trillions of dollars worth of damage. Superman should have took Zod away and not fought in Metropolis. I have a rebuttal to that. It's a movie. I mean, would you rather... These people aren't real, okay? Like, yes, in real life, obviously. But here's the thing. Would you rather have the big battle scene take place in Metropolis where they go through a construction site, a power plant, all these cool background stuff? Or would you rather have the fight take place in a Kansas field where there's nothing but corn all around? Like, come on. Obviously, Superman would try all his best to make sure that no human got killed. He was only on the job for 2 days. Like, he literally just found out and flew for the first time, and then Zod's trying to kill him. So, give the guy a break, one. And two, the movie was way better having it take place in a Metropolis as opposed to a field. And because it took place in Metropolis, that is a big building point on Batman vs. Superman. And one of the reasons why Batman actually gets involved in the first place.
Yeah, so I think they're picking that thread up really nicely in the Batman vs. Superman movie, which is pretty cool. But coming back to this destruction thing, they're presenting this as, more of a grounded kind of movie, right? And if we were to have these type of people, this is the type of destruction that you would get if you have these two people fighting in a major city. This is, we're trying to grasp, we're always trying to find this common ground between, being realistic, but also honoring the comic books. This one maybe leans a bit more towards, we're trying to be a bit more realistic about it and not as honoring the exact comic kind of perception that you get from the character. And I like the way that they went.
No, I agree. I mean, these two are practically gods. I mean, there's a scene earlier where Superman falls and he goes right through a mountain and it doesn't even hurt. So obviously if these two were to battle, there is going to be collateral damage, and it does show, just the scope and power that these two possess. I think it really added to it having it take place in Metropolis. I'd much rather have that than have it take place in some random field. I mean, it's a movie. These imaginary people who got killed in Metropolis. I mean, it makes for a better sequel in Batman vs. Superman. What's Batman going to get mad at? Like, hey, Superman, you killed all the corn crops. I'm going to kill you. Lost a cool $1 billion. No, that's not... What kind of sequel is that going to be? Have it take place in Metropolis, have real consequences, have them actually deal with these consequences, instead of just having it, oh no, everything's fine. No.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was always going to be... I don't know if they had this lined up before, like it was with Batman vs. Superman. But the way that they're integrating it and picking up the threads from Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, I think it's really cool what they've done. They've maybe taken some of the feedback they got from the fans and integrated that back into the movie and saying, look, we're going to admit there was tons of destruction, but that's what leads into this next movie. And
absolutely.
Boom, you see, I guess the opening scene in Batman vs. Superman is going to be kind of the reverse angle of a lot of stuff from Bruce Wayne's eyes. Really cool integration. I think it's a great way to almost kick off Batman vs. Superman.
Oh, yeah, I think opening scene, what it's going to be, is no music, camera fades in, just hear the destruction, hear the buildings crumble, and just show Batman or Bruce Wayne holding the kid, and then roll the opening title sequence. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't get that if they have a fight with no real consequences. And this fight did have real consequences.
Yeah. So do you think as far as a barrier for entry into the particularly Batman vs. Superman or the DC Cinematic Universe, you have to watch this movie?
I think so. I mean, especially Batman vs. Superman builds so much on this. It is definitely a must-watch if you're going to go in and watch Batman vs. Superman. They build a lot off of it. It definitely is. You definitely need to watch it.
Yeah, I don't think you can skip this movie. You'd be a bit confused at the start of Batman vs. Superman, and I think, because there's a Senate scene that you're going to get. It looks like it's probably because of that.
Mm-hmm.
You get, why Batman is initially against Superman, bringing the war to Earth. So, yeah, I think you need to watch this. This is a good first entry into the DCU.
One thing I'd just like to bring up is on the Blu-ray, they have a little documentary talking about Krypton and some of the stuff involved with Kryptonian language. And one of the things they do is they say, like, these, I think it was the military, found out and was able to decode a message between the scout ship that Superman finds and Zod's ship that brings them towards Earth. And one of the lines that is translated says, "Beware of Bertrand's curse, for his name is Doomsday." So for those who don't know, Bertrand was actually the Kryptonian scientist who created Doomsday. He wanted to have the ultimate weapon, so he took a man and introduced him to the harshest environments of Krypton. But the thing is, once he died, he was cloned and reborn stronger than before. So whatever killed him, earlier, he would come back stronger and then he would become immune to that. And so after years of dying and being reborn, he became the ultimate weapon in Doomsday. And so he grew up this hate of Kryptonians and all things Kryptonian. So that's why he has a natural hate for Superman. So, that's kind of a Easter egg in the Blu-ray. It might have been a deleted scene that they chose to take out, but it definitely is not surprising that Doomsday could potentially be making an appearance in Batman vs. Superman.
And he'll be completely immune to neck snap. So Snyder, you think Zack Snyder, one, was successful at bringing the DCU to, the world, kind of opening it up and, really kind of kickstarting the cinematic universe. And two, is he the right man to continue it and build upon this, going into Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, and further on?
He seems to be a fan. He seems to have his finger on the pulse. He seems to understand what's going on. I think he is the right man. I mean, he's the only man kind of right now. He's attached to Batman vs. Superman, Justice League 1, Justice League 2. I think he's producing Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so he's acting in kind of this, Joss Whedon Phase 2 kind of Marvel role where he's, writing, directing, overseeing. I'm not sure how much writing he's doing, but he seems to have this kind of overarching kind of creative control to some degree. Maybe even more like a Kevin Feige, where he's kind of, moving some of these pawns around and placing stuff, and really making sure that there's continuity and connectivity between these films.
I agree. The one thing that's kind of a negative, though, is that he seems to be kind of the only one in DC at this point who's doing that. And the thing I really like about Marvel is that they have different directors and they each have different styles. And so that way an Iron Man movie feels different than a Thor movie, feels different than a Cap movie. And if Zack Snyder is the only one who's overseeing everything, are we all just going to get one universe Zack Snyderized?
I thought you just said cat movie. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Catwoman movie, that's a Marvel movie, right?
I'm very confused.
Sorry, Cap movie.
Yeah, he has a very unique kind of, he seems to have influence on his the way that the movie's shot, and kind of the special effects seem to have a unique tone and look to them. So yeah, it's, maybe bringing in some diversity into that would probably, so we're going to see some of that with Wonder Woman and that. And so as we build kind of the slate of movies, and again with like Suicide Squad, we got something completely different. So I think we're going to see that as we come out. But, we're going to have that his tone is really setting up the cinematic universe. And that can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. Mm-hmm. I think we'll have to see going forward. But he definitely has kind of a unique look to his movies. When you look at a Zack Snyder movie, you can kind of say, well, yeah, that's a Zack Snyder movie.
The visionary genius. He definitely is very good with his visuals. I really do. You can really tell, you're right, a Zack Snyder movie. The color looks a little different. He really likes to use the slow motion. His fight scenes are second to none. I think he does really good job choreographing fight scenes. I'm really interested to see his vision. I hope Warner Brothers gives him full control and he's allowed to fully realize his vision.
Yeah, less shaky cam. There's a little bit of shaky cam in there that it's a bit hard to watch sometimes.
So just a couple Easter eggs. Throughout the movie, you can see LexCorp and Wayne Industries. They have buildings and trucks with the symbols on it, and I think a satellite has Wayne Tech on it or something like that, which obviously is referring to Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor. Another scene is Superman. He saves a bunch of people. It's at the beginning of the movie on the oil rig. It's in the middle of the ocean. And then the next scene, we see Superman in the water with whales around him. And then instantly he's on land. People are speculating that Aquaman may play a hand in helping Superman get out of the ocean. Can't say 100% for certain. I think that'd be a cool add-on. And if they did, then it shows they had the foresight to look past Man of Steel and include this in the sequel. So it'll be interesting to see if that actually does, in fact, turn out to be Aquaman or not.
It'd be cool if they're planting seeds. These are very, very subtle seeds. Like your average moviegoer, they're not going to pick up on stuff like this. But again, it's those nice little seeds for the fans that you're getting, and I love that they do this in movies.
So Tim, I'm not sure if Marvel does this, but they actually released a prequel comic before Man of Steel came out. And they actually had some pretty big information in there. So there's a scene where Superman is in the scout ship, and he sees these pods. One is filled with a dead person, and the other one is open, and there's no one inside. So the prequel comic was written by Zack Snyder, DC head of creative, the head of DC creativity, Jeff Johns, and David Goyer, the writer of Man of Steel. So they wrote the prequel comic, and in it, it takes place. They never specifically say when it takes place. You just assume it's a long time ago. It's at the height of Krypton's powers, so thousands of years ago. It's actually Kara Jor-El, and you'll know her more by the name of Supergirl. So she goes on one of these scouting missions, and she goes kind of to set up an outpost for Krypton to kind of see about life and other planets. But an escaped murderer actually goes onto her ship and murders her entire crew except for her. So then she wakes up, she's in cryogenic stasis or whatever they call it, and she sees that her whole crew is murdered, and so her and this murderer, I forget the guy's name, but they have this battle, and it causes the ship to crash. And so the ship crashes actually on Earth, and that wasn't its intended destination. So with the ship crashed on Earth, she survives, and then she actually leaves. So is there potential there, do you see, for her being the birth of the Amazons? Is the Amazons' bloodline in Batman vs Superman going to get traced all the way back to Supergirl crash landing on Earth, and then her breeding with the species and creating this race of super warriors known as the Amazons?
That would be cool. That'd be a cool way to integrate kind of this movie again. Little seeds being planted. And that'd be, because what they would have crash landed like tens of thousands of years ago. So
yeah.
So give credence to kind of the idea that this Amazon kind of race has been building up, and we see Wonder Woman in the trailer and she looks pretty powerful.
Yeah, she can withstand a blast from Doomsday. All right, Tim. So let's move on to some ratings of the movie. On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give the movie?
It's gonna carry the weight of being an origin movie. And with that comes, some dialogue. They did a really good job at showing us a lot of stuff. It wasn't just, tales and, flashbacks to Krypton and stuff like that. I liked how they started the movie. I liked how they developed the character of Superman. I liked that he wasn't kind of this, it took time for him to move into the role. Some people may have preferred him, being Superman as we got right into the movie, saving cats out of the trees. But I like it took time. I like that, he had to find himself as Superman. It's not really even to the end of the movie that, he becomes, and we don't even he's not even called Superman. We have that one scene where, Lois Lane, and then he gets cut off. But, this is a great first entry into the DC cinematic universe. And, it develops the character of Superman a bit. I really like, kind of the the more of the bold steps they took with the destruction and Superman killing. And that might be, I might be in the minority there, but I like the tone that they set for this. I would have liked to see maybe a bit more humor in there, and maybe we're gonna get that a bit further on. It was a pretty dark film. The CG is great. The score was great. How do you get away from kind of the original Superman score?
Oh, I hear that, and I literally get tears in my eyes every time. It's just such a beautiful score. That opening, like dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
dun.
but Hans Zimmer did a great job in this movie. It really captured the essence of this kind of 21st century Superman. Costume's great. I'm gonna have to give this, an 8 out of 10. It's a definite recommend from me. A big thumbs up, and check this out before seeing Batman vs Superman. I think this is your barrier for entry. It's a good movie, and yeah, definitely check this out.
I'm gonna have to agree. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 as well. I'm gonna say it's definitely a must own if you're a collector of comic book movies, or even if you're just a collector of movies. I say pick it up. Definitely spring for the Blu-ray. The action sequences are amazing. They're really crisp. He does a really good job, Zack Snyder, presenting this movie. Definitely pick it up. You won't regret it. It's got great rewatchability. In fact, I think it gets better the more times you watch it. First time is kind of action-packed and you kind of miss some stuff. And you go back and you're like, man, that was a really good scene. And I feel like it has a lot more heart than people realize. I mean, the scene where I think her name is Jamie Olsen, she's probably going to die. She's trapped in all this rubble. And then Perry White tries to get her out but can't. And then he just stays with her and holds her hand. I mean, that scene is powerful. That's a great scene. I mean, that just tugs at your heartstring. That is excellent. And I feel like Man of Steel gets too much. People think it's just all action, but it has a lot of heart. And the scenes on Krypton at the end when Laura Jor-El is going to die, and then the robot said, well, aren't you going to seek refuge? And she's like, what's the point? The planet's going to explode. I mean, this is it. And then she says, build a better world, Cal. Make it better than ours. I mean, that's heart-wrenching stuff. I mean, that is just excellent. It was excellently acted. It's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of action. And I know you said, like, the humor. There are a couple of funny parts in there that are kind of subtle. Like, he's fighting Zod on the construction site, and it says, like, 170 days since last accident, and then they knock it down to 0. Or, actually, Carol Ferris, the female officer, and then at the end of the film, when she says, I just think he's kind of hot, that Carol Ferris is actually the same name of Green Lantern's girlfriend, who actually turns into the star Sapphire. So are they foreshadowing maybe a Green Lantern reference in that? Because her dad owns Ferris Airlines, which is a big military airline company. So that's another Easter egg that's in there that, rewatch it and remember that, and it could, be like, oh, that character has more depth now.
This is why I absolutely love these big franchise, these, these cinematic universes that they're constructing, like stuff like that. Like, I didn't know that. But, upon hearing that, it's kind of like, that is great. You see it in the DC movies. You see it in all the Marvel movies. And it's just something, little tidbits for the fans that they kind of throw in there, which really makes me think that the people that are writing these, directing these, and, overall crafting these universes are putting the effort into it. Not only, for the to make a good movie or a big box office, but they're doing it for the fans.
Oh, totally.
And I really, really, really am thankful for that.
Oh, you could definitely tell that they're fans as well. I mean, before they'd make it and then the director would be like, oh, I haven't read a Superman comic or I haven't read a Batman comic. But the people that are doing these movies are fans themselves. So they want to do the movies justice not only for the fans, but for themselves as well.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so that wraps up our Man of Steel review. We're going to go give you a rundown of each of the DC Cinematic Universe movies that they have planned out. Now, if they actually get made or not, that's another story. But as of right now, that they're all on the schedule, so we're going to assume that they're all going to get made. So let's start with Batman vs. Superman. So Batman vs. Superman, the trailer dropped, and I'm just going to go out and say it. What did I say last episode? I called it. More people are looking forward to Civil War, and with both trailers' reactions, you can definitely tell. I told you, when Civil War came out, I haven't heard one negative thing about that trailer. It was an excellent trailer. Batman vs Superman trailer hit, nothing but complaining from all the fanboys, and it just wears on you. So what I'm gonna do now is, I heard a lot of criticism on the Batman vs Superman trailer, and I'm gonna knock them down one by one, so that way when you go into the Batman vs Superman movie, you're feeling good about your decision to buy tickets.
Yeah. One thing you do have to remember, though, when you're comparing Civil War versus Batman vs Superman trailers, this is the last Batman vs Superman trailer. That was the first Civil War trailer.
Very true. Very true.
So the first time we're seeing kind of, Cap and all those guys go at it, we're getting towards the end, and we may be getting towards the point where people are stopping watching the trailers too, right? Just purely for spoilers. Going back to my rule, I don't watch these trailers. I watch this trailer, and as we get into it, I'll kind of express my feelings towards why I usually don't watch trailers this late in the game.
Fair enough, Tim. Fair enough. All right, the first big criticism. Doomsday is a bad choice / he looks terrible. Well, you know what? The CGI potentially is not finished, for one. And two, I don't believe this is Doomsday's final form. So remember, Doomsday, he dies, he comes back stronger than before. And he has all these huge rock spikes that jump out or jut out from his body. And it just, he looks different. And I don't feel like the Doomsday that we got is how he's going to look at the end of the film. I think this is just a first, like a baby Doomsday kind of. And then he kind of grows up and then he matures into the lovable killing machine that we all know and love.
You have to, I don't know if you want to admit this or not, but I saw some pretty funny memes.
Oh, they were hilarious, eh?
The Ninja Turtle one.
That one's good.
The one against Abomination.
Yeah.
And then the troll in Lord of the Rings.
You know, the same people who made that troll made the design for this character, so that's not far off.
So it's a Weta thing, eh? They're doing just the Doomsday stuff, or are they doing... I think it's just the Doomsday stuff they're doing.
Let's just say the Doomsday stuff.
Yeah.
No one's going to fact check this. So... people are saying, like, oh, Doomsday, that's a bad choice. Couldn't disagree more. That is the perfect choice. Doomsday is a one-dimensional character. He's built for one purpose. He doesn't have any greater motivations like the Joker or Bane. He's just a killing machine. He doesn't have a complex origin. He just dies and gets reborn. And then another thing. We don't know if Lex creates him for certain. We see a whole bunch of electricity in some tubes, and the next scene, Doomsday's there. How do we know that's not the Phantom Zone? You know, we saw the Phantom Zone in Man of Steel where Zod and his traders from Krypton got sent before Krypton got destroyed. How do we know that another villain or from Krypton like Doomsday wasn't there and then he got released after Zod got released from his Phantom Zone? You know, we just don't know. And that's the thing. This is just a trailer. People are assuming they already know everything about the movie, but we don't. So I'm going to say, you know what? Hold off on judgment. I'm going to hold off on judgment on the Doomsday. You know, the first picture of him, I wasn't too overly impressed, but I'm going to hold off on judgment. What do you think, how he looked?
Yeah, well, I think when I look at it, my first initial thoughts were, yeah, he kind of looks kind of goofy. Personally, I think they should have held back on showing Doomsday. I like the idea of maybe hinting towards it. I think you almost... in my opinion, if you cut out just the scene where Doomsday comes down the building and runs out and then fires at Batman, you cut that portion out, but you still have Wonder Woman taking the shield or the heat rays off the shield, and then you kind of leave that. Mm-hmm. That's how I would have liked to have seen it. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking here about, the evolution of a character, we see this with multiple villains, right? We saw the evolution of Ultron in Age of Ultron. Are we going to see the evolution of Doomsday? Probably. You sent me a cool image the other day of what Doomsday looked like. It looked cool. Like the idea that he could grow to this, big, huge beast. And again, like you're saying, this idea of a one-dimensional killing machine for, kind of our Trinity to go up against. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I wish they'd have held off maybe. Mm-hmm. Or if this wasn't a completed product, maybe not shown it right away. But yeah, I think holding off would have been better. But even at that, look how much discussion this has brought up. And it's not always positive light, but sometimes, people are going to go in and see, what does he look like later? What does he look like after? Is this the final Doomsday? I think it's we're discussing it, right?
I agree, but I think part of the reason why they chose to show him is we're in the age of leaks. It seems like every company has something leaked, or some movie gets something leaked. I think Warner Brothers wanted to jump ahead of the situation and expose Doomsday first. They didn't want you getting some grainy image of him and then being like, oh, that looks even worse. They were like, okay, well, we're going to give you the image, so now we're satisfied. So when we go into the movie, we're not going to be looking for other images of him. I think, what? That's good. I think people are going to hold off on kind of leaking anything else about Doomsday because we got it. Yeah. So there's no appetite for it right now.
Yeah, and let's face it, you're never gonna make everyone happy with these things, right?
No.
Maybe it comes down more to the portrayal of Doomsday versus the look of Doomsday.
No, I totally agree. Another negativity I heard about the trailer was that Luthor seemed too zany. He seemed a little bit like the Riddler. And you know what? I agree. He kind of looks a little campy and he had some jokes. But Luthor is the smartest man in the world. He's probably pretending, he has a public persona. Who he is in the public and who he is behind to his close friends and who he is without the public eye is probably a totally different person. He probably knows already who Batman is and who Superman is. That scene where he shakes his hand and says, you do not want to pick a fight with this guy. He probably knows that Bruce Wayne over there is Batman. So he's probably telling him, I don't think you can take him. And I think that is actually Luthor is playing them both, and that's part of his plan. He's playing them both against each other, and they're thinking, well, this Luthor character is he's such a moron, or he's so, goofy that there's no way he has ill intent. But that's totally what he's doing. I think that is one area that is just, he's playing a part. We have to see more. I don't believe this is the last we've seen of Luthor. I think his comedy is just an act.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That scene that you're talking about when he goes and introduces himself or introduces Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, I was kind of thrown off a bit because there's the impression there that, he knows, he says, Bruce Wayne meets Clark Kent. It's kind of a weird thing to say, We have a mild-mannered reporter and we have a billionaire. Yeah. So there's something more going on. There seems to be this kind of, I got the feel the way they're all looking at each other, they all kind of know who each other are. Yeah, which is kind of an interesting dynamic that I'm looking forward to them exploring a bit in the movie.
No, totally agree. Another thing is we see Batman holding a gun, and people are like, Batman doesn't use a gun. Wrong. He killed Darkseid with a gun. He shot him in the head. And in The Dark Knight Returns, when he fights Superman, he also uses a gun. See, I think Batman doesn't have a problem with guns if he's going up against high-powered aliens or robots. But, if he's fighting the Riddler, he's not going to use a gun. He can take him out with his hands. But when he's clearly overmatched against Doomsday, what do you want him to do? Punch him? He needs a gun. And we don't even know if that gun shoots bullets. It could be electricity that slows Doomsday down. It could be gas that knocks him out. We don't know yet.
Or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know yet. So to say, Batman uses a gun, that's dumb. That's not my Batman. No, it's not. That is incorrect. Okay, and another one. We're saying it gave away too much. The trailer gave away too much. I think, I agree. If you want to go into the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, definitely stay away from that trailer. But as I said earlier, I think part of the reason why Man of Steel didn't get the critical acclaim that I think it should have is because I think the trailer was totally different from the movie, and people didn't expect it. Audiences went in, if they didn't know Doomsday was in it, and then they saw it, I think that'd be a lot to take in on a sitting. You'd be like, whoa, you have Batman fighting Superman, then all of a sudden Doomsday's in there, and then Wonder Woman's in it. But if you go in knowing these things, I think it might soften the impact and lessen the shock and increase your enjoyment of the movie. Also, let's go back to Age of Ultron. Big hit blockbuster movie that was really well done this year. Let's look at that last trailer. Who do we see in that? We see Ultron, the big baddie. We see Scarlet Witch. We see a little bit of Quicksilver. And then we get the big reveal at the end. Just a little bit of Vision. So, I don't think that's very different from this last trailer, Batman vs. Superman. I mean, Vision was supposed to be the guy that they kind of hide away. Mm-hmm. And we don't see how he's created. we kind of see 1 second of how Doomsday is created. So in my opinion, I don't feel like it's all that different from the Age of Ultron trailer.
Well, and that's it. And, I said it last episode, and I just said it before. This is the reason I don't watch the last trailers. And I'm going to err on the side of I think it did give away too much. I think there's probably a lot still in there, but I have, and I think some people are feeling this way in the idea that, you kind of get the start, the middle, and the finish. And the finish being Doomsday and a Trinity fight. And, you're referring to the Age of Ultron. I never watched that trailer.
Oh,
so I Vision, when I saw him in the theater, that was the first time I saw Vision.
Nice.
So I was able to experience that kind of the way that I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm going to kind of coming back to this point, maybe watching these trailers isn't, this one, I think because I'm not as connected to the DC Cinematic Universe, I was like, yeah, I'll check it out and see what's going on. I really wanted to see Batman in action here.
Mm-hmm.
And I got all that. But like I said, if it's a great trailer up until, I think personally, the Doomsday. You slide out that 10 seconds or 12 seconds of Doomsday, and you just have Wonder Woman taking the heat ray. Perfect trailer.
Yeah.
But I think it just gave a tad bit too much. And even, I don't know if you'll talk about a bit kind of the desert sequence too.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe that you pulling that out too. We kind of got hints of that, kind of that 10-second teaser or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's all we needed. Kind of the addition with the whatever the flying guys are or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think that again was maybe a little bit too much. Because then you're starting to become skeptical on other parts, and you're digging into the movie maybe a bit more than maybe is originally intended with kind of a trailer like this.
No, fair enough. Let us know your thoughts. Send us a tweet, send us an email. Who do you think's right? Do you agree with me? I feel like they showed just the right amount. Or do you agree with Tim? Did they show maybe a little bit too much? So my last criticism I'm going to tackle, there's a lot of people on the interwebs are saying DC's rushing into this. They're building their cinematic universe. They're putting everyone into one movie. They need to do the Marvel way. The Marvel way worked great. So where they set up Iron Man, Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, and then the Avengers. But I'm here to tell you, that worked for them. But that's not the only way, and here's why. Go back and look at the box office numbers of Cap 1. Now look at the box office numbers of Cap 2. Do the same thing for Thor 1 and Thor 2. Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3. What's the difference? The movies that came after the Avengers got a huge bump in box office gross. Why do you think that is? Because everybody went to see the Avengers that summer. It was probably the biggest movie in 10 years. It was amazing. Everyone loved it. And so when the solo movies came out, we had this good vibe attached to those movies. We're like, I remember Cap from the Avengers. Yeah, I really like him. I'm going to go check out Cap 2. And I think that's what DC's doing. I mean, DC has two main guns. Let's face it. They have Batman. They have Superman, with Wonder Woman a distant third. DC has never had a hit movie outside of Batman or Superman. If you look at the 10 highest grossing DC comic movies, 9 of them are Batman or Superman, with Green Lantern coming up in 10th place. I mean, yeah. Let's think about that for a second. And several of those movies came out in the 80s and 90s. So, look at some of the movies they put out. Green Lantern was a flop. It was a terrible movie. Watchmen and V for Vendetta, while they are Vertigo comics, they fall under the DC brand. I personally enjoyed them. I thought they were very good movies, but they weren't spectacular box office draws. So if DC put out a Shazam or a Cyborg movie out first, you really think that's going to be a hit? That probably loses money, and then they're not going to go ahead with it. You put it out after Batman vs. Superman, where even if they have a 2-minute cameo, just that goodwill that's built up from that movie, it's going to add 50, maybe even 60, $75 million to the box office. Warner Brothers is not stupid. They have a plan to this. What do you think, Tim? Do you think they should have went the Marvel way, or do you like this DC way that they're doing?
It's very, very clear that I'm a big fan of Marvel and how they did their cinematic universe.
Whoa, you're a big fan of Marvel? Whoa, mind blowing.
It's not that I have any bias or anything. But at that, the way that they're doing this universe, I think, is the right way for DC. People, the idea of more origin movies, I think that's wearing a bit thin with kind of the population. Particularly, you look at, a rebooted Amazing Spider-Man that did not do well. People are tired of seeing we don't need another Batman origin movie.
Exactly.
We jumping into Batman being around for 20 years or whatever it's been in an established universe where we have with the Suicide Squad, we're seeing there's an established Joker. We're seeing Batman's been around for a long time. We've got our new Superman origin. We had the Superman origin story that kicked off the DCU, but I don't think we need to get into this big huge slate of movies that are going through all the origin of these. We're seeing this even developing in Marvel, where we're introducing now like Black Panther in Civil War.
Yep.
He's going to get a movie, but probably not an origin movie. We're probably going to end up with Captain Marvel introduced in another movie, like Infinity War or something like that. So everyone seems to be going this way. We don't need. We're jumping into established universes. Warren universes. Universes that that have history to them already. And I think not only does that allow for an opportunity to have more developed characters, but it's an opportunity to tell different stories. No. We don't need to tell how Batman's parents were killed. I'm sure we're going to see little hints towards it, but everyone knows that story. Everyone knows how Batman became Batman, how the Joker became Joker. And then they're just going to go in and kind of twist the knobs a bit and change these characters. And, because you're starting from something that has a foundation that you don't need to build, look at the directions, the different stories you can tell. We can get into more, developed comic book storylines that maybe you wouldn't particularly get into if you had to run through a slate of origin movies. And if we run through a slate of origin movies at DC, we're not getting a Justice League till 2020.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and by that time, who knows? The comic book craze may have been over in the next 5 years, so They gotta strike while the iron's hot.
No, I think this is really the way to go. Combining their two biggest characters and at the same time introducing your third, and then you're going to get Aquaman and potentially the Flash thrown in there. You're getting your Lex Luthor. I think we have to go this way. You have to build this universe. Is the movie going to suffer a bit from trying to build? Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe they've cracked the code here how to get away from filling these movies up too much.
X-Men did it, and they did a very good job. I mean, look at how many characters they introduced in X1. You had Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, Jean Grey, Magneto, Professor X. So there's more than one way to do these films, and just because it's different doesn't mean it's worse. I just want to add, I'm not trying to bash the Marvel movies in any way. I love them. I love most of all of them. There's only a couple that I kind of rag on, but they've done a very good job. They kind of set the bar. They're the first one out there to actually go and create this shared universe. So, I mean, I am more of a DC guy. I'm going to admit that, but I still love the Marvel movies, and I love some Marvel comics. So don't take this in any way like I'm bashing Marvel. I'm just more kind of fed up of hearing, you go in, see this trailer, get super jacked, and then you want to, you read, some stuff that you see online, and it's just all negative. It kind of wears on you, so just want to address some of those issues. So, yeah, that's enough for all that. Let's talk about some of the stuff that we liked.
Like I said last week, I hadn't really seen the Affleck costume in motion moving. You get to see a lot more of it in here. And the voice changer kind of sounds a bit robotic. I kind of like that.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I was kind of a bit, the first time I watched the trailer, I was kind of like, that's kind of different. And then the second and third time, I was like, that's actually kind of cool. The dynamic between Batman and Superman, Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, I really like those scenes. They seem to play really well together.
Oh, yeah. I think those might actually be more entertaining than the Batman and Superman scenes.
Yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to developing that dynamic. And then I even, as quirky as Lex Luthor is, I kind of imagine him being more of just like a Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah,
But the fact that he's got kind of this, maybe I'm so smart that I'm crazy kind of vibe going on, I kind of like that. I kind of thought it was a different take on Lex Luthor. He's not kind of this, more methodical and, he seems like he's kind of a bit out there, which I kind of like. Different take, it's something, a different direction to go with the character. I like that. And I really like this. Like I said, I don't think it should have been in there, but I did really like the desert sequence stuff.
Yes.
I like Batman's outfit in it.
It's cool.
Yeah, and then the way that Superman comes down and kind of, it's, I guess this like whole post-apocalyptic kind of nightmare sequence or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
I kind of like to include. It's kind of weird that I say I really like it, but I didn't think it should be in there. But that's just the way it is.
Yeah, so they're saying that could either be a dream sequence of, if Batman and Superman don't put aside their differences and work together, then, it could be the end of the world. And so you see in that scene, there are these winged creatures that go and then they take humans and they fly off with them. Now, a lot of people are speculating online that those are actually Darkseid's parademons. Now, parademons are kind of like the Chitauri from the Avengers movie, where they're kind of like the army of Darkseid. So they go in, do his bidding, and really cool to see them make an appearance if that's who they are in fact. So I'm thinking maybe Wonder Woman has a vision, the Amazons tell her she has to go in and help, save man's world. So she brings Batman and Superman together, and then they can fight this doomsday beast, as you will. Let's talk about that shot at the end. The shot was Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. That is their Avengers shot. That is their Avengers Assemble moment. That was so cool. I mean, you got them facing the fire going off. It looks great. They're all in costume. What did you think of that ending shot?
Yeah, again, it's your, like you said, the Avengers, the different shots that they do. It's the DC Trinity, great way to end the trailer. You got kind of the music swelling in the background. You've kind of got Superman and Batman kind of like a bit skeptical. Who is this? I think it's really cool that they had that in there. Perfect way to end the trailer.
I agree. So when we go through each of the slates of the DC Cinematic Universe, I'm just going to make a couple of book suggestions to read before the movie comes out. Kind of give you a better understanding of the character and maybe some of the villains who could make an appearance. So it seems like Batman vs. Superman is taking a lot from the graphic novel The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. Features an older Batman who comes out of retirement. He has to stop the Joker, and he also ends up fighting Superman. This is a great book. It turned the Batman from the Adam West campy style into the badass Batman we all know and love. However, there is one criticism. If you're a Superman fan, you will hate how he is depicted in this movie. He is nothing but a lackey for the U.S. government, and it drives me crazy. We already saw in Man of Steel, he told the U.S. government, I'm not going to go against you, but I'm going to do things my way. And I think that's great that they're, differentiating the character from the Frank Miller version. Second book I'd recommend is The Death of Superman. It features Superman fighting Doomsday. Not a lot of dialogue in this story. It was really cool. When it came out, it was huge. It sold millions of copies. Great art, but it definitely gives you a little bit of insight into the Doomsday character. Now let's move on to Suicide Squad. So Suicide Squad is the next big movie. We've got one trailer. Tim, what did you think of the trailer that came out?
This movie, I didn't think they were going to keep the name Suicide Squad. But I really like the look of this. Like it's so different from the other movies that we've gotten from DC in recent memory. And the idea of integrating kind of the Joker into this and then kind of this like misfit band of criminals to fight it's kind of a cool concept. And I think this really does have the potential to do really well. If the trailer is any indication of kind of the the dynamic with the different characters that we're getting, I think there's going to be something very cool and very unique and special about this.
No, I totally agree. And going back to the whole Marvel versus DC thing, if Marvel never puts out Guardians of the Galaxy, we never get this movie. That movie was such a great movie and such a hit, the ensemble cast. Without that, we never would have gotten this. But I totally agree. It's a very cool, unique concept. I would have loved to see this concept in the 90s. Imagine a Suicide Squad movie with Jim Carrey's Riddler, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, and then that Bane character. How awesome of a movie would that have been? That would have been probably the greatest movie of all time.
It would have been mental.
I would have loved it. Just want to give some love to David Ayer. He is one of the best directors in Hollywood. He did Fury and End of Watch.
Oh, End of Watch is so good.
Oh, those are two of the best movies that have come out recently. And if he does anything close to that, but includes Harley Quinn and the Joker, I'm in. Sign me up. I think what would have been really cool is if the Suicide Squad movie actually came out first, and then Amanda Waller brings the team together to fight Doomsday, and then they fail, and that's why Batman and Superman come in to fight him.
Yeah.
How cool would that have been?
That would have been really neat. And realistically, if you a couple of years ago, and even just when Man of Steel came out, and they said, well, you're gonna get a Batman versus Superman next, and then you get Suicide Squad. You could have been like, what?
Yeah. Nope, totally. It totally kind of took me by surprise as well. Not as big of characters, but you know what? That means they can do more with the characters, and I'm really looking forward to it.
It's a real way to rapidly expand the universe, right? You're adding a ton of characters in at once. Be it all kind of, I'm going to call them B-list because I'm not super familiar with them, with the exception of maybe Harley Quinn and the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
But you're rapidly expanding this universe, and I think it's a neat way to do it.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, as well, when they're B-list characters, if you do make changes, there's less uproar. It's easier to change Deadshot's costume than it is to change Superman's costume, so it allows more freedom and creativity for the director. As I mentioned last time, a good book to start on this is the New 52 Volume 1, Kicked in the Teeth. It gives kind of an outline of the Suicide Squad, what they're about. Check it out. I would definitely read that before going into this movie. So next we got Wonder Woman. We talked about that last time as well. Just some casting news. Sean Bean from Game of Thrones is cast as Ares. Ares is the god of war, and in the comics, Wonder Woman takes over this mantle from Ares. Expect other Greek gods to show up. Hades might make an appearance. Aphrodite. I think that's really cool having the Greek gods in there. What do you think, Tim, of having, kind of the Greek mythology introduced in Wonder Woman?
I think it's neat. You're going to build kind of almost this mythology, a bit of lore around Wonder Woman. But I didn't realize that Sean Bean was cast in this. Surely he's going to have a very dramatic death at some point.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. He's definitely really one of the best actors, especially for this kind of role. There's no better choice they could have got for him. One thing I'd like to see is in the sequel is the new character Firstborn. So Firstborn is the villain. He's the son of Zeus, actually the first son of Zeus, hence the name Firstborn. And Zeus recognizes he's evil, so he freezes him in ice in Antarctica because he's trying to take the throne from Zeus. He gets free, goes on a mad killing spree. It's such an excellent run. It's written by Brian Azzarello. So recommend picking up book 1. It's called Blood from the New 52. It tells some backstory about Wonder Woman and the Amazons. A great jumping on point. The one thing though, it's a very long story. It lasts about 35 issues. So there's several graphic novels to pick up. But start with number 1 and then continue on from there if you enjoy it. Cannot recommend this book enough. Best female comic book character of all time. Is it Wonder Woman?
Yeah, well, it very could well be. She's definitely probably the most recognizable female comic book character of all time, or at least one of the top few. And yeah, I'm really happy that we're gonna get this movie. I think it's something that, as long as they take the time, flesh out the character, flesh out the backstory, and then take their time with filming and getting the right casting, the right characters, and the right people behind it. I think we can get something really, really good here, and a great addition, a great building on of already what's coming out and what's came out as far as the DC Cinematic Universe.
If Wonder Woman you say was number 1, who would you say would be number 2 greatest female superhero of all time?
To be honest with you,
Captain Marvel. You gonna show out some Marvel love here? She-Hulk. Are we gonna get Black Widow?
Like when we're looking at just purely the comic book characters, one of my favorite female comic book characters right now is Captain Marvel. She's been written really well. She's kind of stepped up in her role as far as the comic book. She's a leader in the Avengers. Haven't seen her on the big screen yet. Love to see. Can't wait for that movie. But there's just so many to choose from.
I'm gonna go with Batgirl. I think she has a great bat story, if you will. She's definitely one of the most recognizable female characters, so I'd go with her. So going next, we're going to combine Justice League Part 1 and 2. This is due out, the first one November 2017 and then June 2019. This is the big one. I think people are going to be really surprised with how good this one turns out. Everyone's speculating that Darkseid is the big baddie. If that's the case, Justice League Origin is the must-read for this. This is my prediction of who the roster will be. Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Cyborg, The Flash, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, with then potentially Shazam and Martian Manhunter making an appearance. So I'd like to keep it at 7 or 8 characters. Might be a little bit too much if you add anything more. Then characters don't get enough screen time to be fleshed out. Darkseid, in my opinion, is even bigger and badder than Doomsday. He's kind of like the Thanos of the DC universe. So definitely, I think that would be a great choice. The only other big guy that they could go with would be Anti-Monitor. So think Galactus in Marvel. Instead of consuming worlds, he consumes realities or universes, so he's even bigger and badder than Galactus, if that's possible. If they do go with Anti-Monitor, go read Crisis on Infinite Earths. Probably one of the first DC comic book crossovers. Definitely get it as a graphic novel. Individual comics are pricey because it's such an important book. So pick up the graphic novel. It's a little bit old now, but it definitely is very entertaining and the best story of Anti-Monitor out there.
Is David Goyer writing this one?
I think originally they had potentially said he would be, but with the new writer from Argo, and I'm drawing a blank on who it is, but with Chris Terrio? He wrote Argo. Yeah, Chris Terrio. So that's the one. So with him writing and doing some rewrites on Batman vs. Superman, I think he'll be writing Justice League. Maybe Ben Affleck could as well. Okay, so next we got The Flash. Now, people may not know this, but it's going to be different from the TV show. Ezra Miller is Barry Allen, and he's heavily rumored to be making a cameo in Batman vs. Superman. The thing I would suggest for this is if you read the New 52 Volume 1 Move Forward. Again, this is why the New 52 is so great. It allowed you to try out many different character stories, and it was easy just to jump on a book. I mean, if you're on issue 3 or 4, it's so easy to pick up 3 issues and then catch up, as opposed to 50 or 100. So that's a shout out for the love for the New 52. I'm not sure who the big baddie is. The TV show has kind of done a really good job. I've heard nothing but good things about the TV show.
Gorilla Grodd.
Yeah. Tim, are you looking forward to a Flash movie, or do you feel like maybe they should have not done it because the TV show is so successful?
I'm hoping to get a bit of insight as towards the direction and that, and also how the character is being portrayed in Batman vs. Superman if he does make an appearance. Again, I don't have a huge background in the Flash. I've always saw the Flash and kind of like the Quicksilver, like a bit kind of goofy characters. Mm-hmm. So it'd be interesting to see the direction they go with this, especially in a universe maybe that they're trying to ground a bit more. So I'm looking forward to that. It's gonna take a little more convincing right now for me. Of course, I'm gonna go see this, opening weekend and all that, but it's going to take a little more convincing for me to get super hyped about this. Again, it's still a bit of the ways out, and again, having not a huge attachment to the character, it's going to be a little bit more for me to get interested and hyped up for. But at the same thing, as long as they keep producing good content and they aren't just throwing these movies together, I'm more than willing to take on and become interested and get excited about these movies.
No, I agree. I mean, when Ant-Man got announced, I wasn't too excited for it. Ended up being my favorite superhero movie of this year, so you never know until you go in and watch it.
Exactly.
Next, we got Aquaman. So I'm a huge Aquaman fan, but pop culture certainly doesn't agree with me on this one. Constantly the butt of jokes on shows like Family Guy or Robot Chicken, but I assure you he is badass. So I recommend Volume 1, New 52, The Trench. Features the origin of Aquaman. He's fighting these ancient sea creatures who go onto land and kill the local townspeople. It's really, it's kind of dark, but it also has a lot of humor in it. Like, there's scenes where people will come up to Aquaman and say, like, stereotypes like, oh, do you need a glass of water? Or how are you doing at a land? And stuff like that. So, I mean, it does add, they do recognize and say, yes, Aquaman in the past, especially the Super Friends TV show, he wasn't portrayed as the king of Atlantis, and he wasn't given the gravitas that he deserves. But the New 52 Volume 1 really does a good job of dispelling any notions that Aquaman sucks.
Sorry to cut you off there.
No.
We just got the first image of a Jason Momoa action figure.
That's right. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying about, they didn't show Aquaman in the trailer, but look how quickly it got leaked, his image of what he looks like. Yeah. So what did you think? Did you like the more colorful and less muted Aquaman design?
All right, I like this one. Seems, again, we're kind of seems to be driving towards this more grounded, grittier, kind of darker universe. And I think just the one image they released of him, and then looking at, you can see the full character on the action figure, and that's not going to be an exact portrayal or exact kind of image of it, but you kind of get the point with the tattoos and stuff like that. I think it looks kind of cool. Dark hair as opposed to the blonde hair. Mm-hmm. Not seeing any orange, yellow, or green. Yeah, it's an interesting take on it.
No, I agree. One thing is they have named director James Wan. I think that's a brilliant choice. He did the first 3 Saw movies. He's done Insidious, Conjuring, and Furious 7. So he does a lot of horror movies in there. So a story like The Trench would be perfect to adapt, where it's more of horror. Seeing one thing as well is kind of he has a brother named Ocean Master, and they have kind of a Thor-Loki relationship where Ocean Master is trying to get the throne of Atlantis, but Aquaman has it. So I think they should save that for the sequel. Build up, maybe have Ocean Master and Aquaman team up to beat this Trench characters. And then in the sequel, Ocean Master gets jealous and then they have a battle. And that way it has real meaning behind it.
One thing, when we look at a lot of comic book characters, both from the Marvel and DC side, they kind of have these goofy names sometimes.
Yeah.
You look at Ocean Master, Aquaman, and then you get to the Marvel side, you get all sorts of goofy things. But in the movies, they don't seem to be, they're going more with first names and very subtle references to their actual superhero names. Do you think that they'll be calling this movie Aquaman? Do you think he'll get referred to as Aquaman? Or does Aquaman have like a first name? Or are they going to call him the guy out of the ocean? Or are they going to call him,
Steve.
Khal Drago? I don't know.
Steve from Center Street. No, I definitely think, that's one thing that kind of bugs me about these. Like, they have names. Is it any less goofy than some of the costumes they're wearing? Like, You're taking this stuff seriously. That's their actual name. Just call him what it is. He's Aquaman. Honestly, I would go with it if someone today said, like, oh, Atlantis is real and the king is named Aquaman. Shit, who am I? I'm going to be like, all right, it's Aquaman. Like, I'm not going to be like, that's stupid. Like, he could snap you in two. So, no, I think go with the actual names. All right, coming up on one of our next movies is Shazam. So Shazam is coming out 2019. One time he was called Captain Marvel, but obviously with the competition being called Marvel, that creates some problems. But at one time, he was the most popular superhero in the world, even outselling Superman. Then DC Comics bought Wiz Comics, and he joined the DC universe. However, DC has never really known what to do with Shazam. And that's created actually a good rivalry with Superman, as they are constantly battling one another. And it kind of is smart because, they were battling each other from different comic book companies, so I think that's a brilliant idea. Do you think Superman can make an appearance in this movie and maybe, either team up with Shazam or battle him?
Yeah, it depends how dense the universe has gotten at this point. If they're to the point where we can having these characters kind of cross over and you're getting, more DC characters showing up in other DC characters' movies, not only maybe for a bit of a box office jump, but to kind of progress the dynamic and the overall narrative of the entire DCU itself. Yeah, sure, I think you could throw Superman in here. It might be a way to bring some continuity into this, so you're not getting dropped on you immediately, kind of this, who's Shazam? Last Shazam I remember was Shaquille O'Neal, right?
That'd be amazing if Shaq turns out to be Shazam.
Right.
Oh man, I'm there opening day. So The Rock is playing the main villain, Black Adam. Black Adam has a kind of apocalypse origin. He was, I think, an Egyptian slave, and then he gained this power of the wizard to have the power of the gods. Shazam, I don't know if you know this, but it actually stands for something. Do you want to hazard a guess on what it stands for?
I'm going to say something to do with magic?
Yeah, that is a big part of it. So Shazam stands for, the S is the wisdom of Solomon, the H is the strength of Hercules, stamina of Atlas, power of Zeus, courage of Achilles, and speed of Mercury. So I think it's going to be a fun movie. Who do you think could play Shazam? The Rock is the main villain. He's this big, imposing character. You need an equally big and imposing character. Who out there can do it?
I don't know.
Besides Shaq.
Just bringing The Rock into the mix here. Yeah, The Rock, that guy is awesome. And I cannot see them waiting to introduce Black Adam until April 2019 with The Rock.
No.
I have a feeling we're going to see him earlier on in some capacity, in some way. You can't hold off The Rock in one of these movies until 2019 or whatever. But as far as getting someone to stand opposite of The Rock, the guy is humongous. And I can't even think of anyone off the top of my head that can match him physically. Because you put someone even a guy like Chris Hemsworth or one of those guys, they're still going to be, Rock is still going to look much more physically impressive And, I don't know who you get to stand next to him.
I know who. Stone Cold Steve Austin. How sick would that be? You got The Rock in there. He's Black Adam. He does the people's eyebrow, does a rock bottom to some jabroni. All of a sudden, the glass breaks. Stone Cold comes out there, gives Black Adam a stunner, opens up 2 beers, drinks it, and he gone.
That was my entire 90s.
Should we have a 90s WWF retro episode?
I think we could do that because that was the Attitude Era there.
Oh,
was that's when I watched wrestling. I haven't watched it since, but.
Okay, fans, if you're out there, who was better, WWF or WCW?
Ooh, that's a tough one. NWO days and WCW were awesome.
It's just too sweet, brother.
Well, this went sideways quick.
All right, so coming up nearing the end here, Cyborg. So Cyborg has a very cool origin. Originally, he was a boxer, and then there was an accident where he burned his body, and his dad used his experimental technology to keep him alive. Think of kind of like a younger RoboCop. But with football being way more popular and boxing pretty much gone the way of horse racing, they updated it to football. Don't know too much. We know Ray Fisher. He's cast as Cyborg. I'm not too sure who they're going to get for a villain. He doesn't have any iconic villains, but definitely check out Justice League Origin. This would be the best place to start if you want to learn more about Cyborg. So coming into our last film, The Green Lantern Corps, July 2020. So this is a reboot from that failed Ryan Reynolds live-action film. It's supposed to be a buddy cop with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. So Green Lanterns are kind of like space cops. They patrol the entire universe with the help of these green rings. The green rings are only given to the brave and who have no fear. So with these green rings, they're able to create these constructs, which are linked to their imagination. So they're only limited into what they can come up with their brain. So for example, if there's a fire, you think, I need a fire truck to put this out. You think about it, boom, it's created with the ring, it helps you out. So Jon Stewart is the same Green Lantern from the animated universe on the Justice League Unlimited show. He's a former Navy SEAL. He gets the power of the Green Lantern bestowed upon him. One character I think they're going to introduce and have as the big baddie is Sinestro. So he made a small appearance in the movie, but he wasn't actually the big baddie in the Ryan Reynolds one. Sinestro, he gets fed up with the Green Lanterns. He thinks that they're not doing enough to protect the universe. He feels like more harsh punishments or more harsh tactics need to be taken. So he breaks off from the Green Lanterns and creates his own Yellow Lanterns, or Sinestro Corps, and they rule by fear. Very good, cool concept introducing the character of Sinestro. He is just as powerful as Hal Jordan. In fact, he's even more powerful than Hal Jordan. Highly can't wait for this. The only thing that sucks is that it's 5 years away. I think, Green Lantern should have been up there right after Suicide Squad. I think he's one of the more powerful comic book characters in DC, and it's just a shame that the Ryan Reynolds film kind of tainted him. Tim, are you going to give Green Lantern another chance, or are you one and done with our big green guy?
I think, they're giving lots of room for people to forget about the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. So I think by the time, this might not even happen. We're talking about June 2020. So we'll see. I'm guessing we're going to get some references and maybe an introduction to Green Lantern in Justice League. And yeah, I think that if they can pull this off, they just have to, they're going to make a big effort to distance themselves from the Ryan Reynolds version of it. And I think if done right, you could end up, this should have been DC's Guardians in a sense. It almost took itself a bit too seriously, and it just didn't seem, the CG wasn't right. And so I think if they go a different direction, this kind of buddy cop thing is a bit intriguing, and I think if they really work on it, this is something that eventually I think that people will get back into, especially if they have a good outing in Justice League, good first introduction if they are included.
No, I agree. I would like to see DC kind of license this out and kind of like the X-Men, where Green Lantern just goes out into space and just has crazy cool space adventures. One thing, if you want to read more about Sinestro, pick up the Sinestro Corps War, written by Jeff Johns. But also, if you want to learn more about Green Lantern, don't start with the New 52 on this one. This one was kind of odd. Start with Jeff Johns' Secret Origin. So it has a picture of Ryan Reynolds on the cover, but don't be scared away by that. It doesn't have anything to do with the movie. It's written by Jeff Johns. It's an excellent origin story. It was retold pretty quickly before they rebooted into the New 52, so DC didn't feel like they needed to reboot again a couple of months later. So that's where I would start. So before we end this segment, we thought we'd rank in terms of our most anticipated movies of the DC cinematic universe. So Tim, do you want to start with your rankings first?
Yeah, I'll take a shot. Maybe I'll just do my top 5 here, and then I'll kind of add in the other ones. So right now I'm looking probably at, just because of what we've gotten from Batman vs Superman, I want to see Batman on screen again. Big Batman fan and that sort of thing. So I'm definitely gonna put Batman vs Superman up there, and then I'm gonna slide in Suicide Squad.
Wow.
The interesting thing about this is, I like what I'm seeing from this. It's different. It's darker. This thing probably could be rated R, but I don't think it will be. And I kind of like the direction they're going with it. So I'm going to slide that in as number 2. I'm also very interested in Jared Leto's Joker. Always been a big fan of Joker as well. And to see kind of how the dynamic between him and Batman is explored a bit, but also how does Joker do in a movie that doesn't have Batman in it, maybe as much as all the other ones have.
That's a very good point. I mean, the one thing about Batman is I think he definitely has the best rogues gallery in all of comic books. I mean, he has Joker, he has Penguin, he has Two-Face. Quick question for you. Okay, so we're taking just the original Batman films, excluding Ledger's Joker, because that is clearly number 1. Who gave the best villain performance in a Batman movie to date?
I really like Bane.
Yeah, I'm going to agree.
Yeah.
Which Bane? Batman and Robin or Tom Hardy's Bane?
Clearly Batman and Robin.
Clearly.
No,
Bane smash.
The big wrestler dude. But no, I really like Bane's portrayal. And it isn't something that's, seemingly favored by everybody, but I like Tom Hardy's Bane. I liked how he talked, I liked how he looked. And, some people says he's motivated and stuff like that. And the only thing I didn't like is I didn't really like how his character, how they rounded out and finished off his character. I thought it kind of went against exactly what they're building through the whole thing. But other than the way he ends up dying or whatever he does, I think he's a great character. And that's probably, outside of the Joker, it's probably my favorite Batman villain.
No, true. I'm going to say something a little bit different. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go with Catwoman from Batman Returns. I thought Michelle Pfeiffer really brought new life into that character, which was kind of a one-bit character at the time. Her portrayal was excellent. You still see people at cons dressed up like Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. I think she did it better than the one that was in Dark Knight Rises with Princess Diaries. What's her name? Anne Hathaway. So I think Michelle Pfeiffer did it better than Anne Hathaway. So just for the sake of being different, I'm gonna say Michelle Pfeiffer.
There you go.
Sorry, Tim. Keep going.
And then I'll probably slide in Wonder Woman, and then Justice League 1 and 2. I'm still not sure what Justice League is going to be about, and so that's where I'm kind of sliding it down as my most as far as anticipation. I think it may end up climbing up a bit. And then that kind of rounds out, I guess, my top 5, combining Justice League 1 and 2. And then kind of these other ones, I'm just going to be kind of throwing them. I'm going to say probably maybe like a Green Lantern, Aquaman, maybe Shazam may be up in there too, because I'm looking forward to The Rock's portrayal in there.
And Stone Cold.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess maybe a Cyborg and then Flash. These kind of bottom ones, they're going to kind of fall in and out of kind of my interest, but I think as we get closer to them and we start understanding a bit more of the characters and maybe their introduction in these other movies, I'm probably going to end up seeing myself slot these in a bit differently. But right now it's Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad, and Wonder Woman, the ones I'm looking forward to the most.
That makes a lot of sense. Those are the ones we've kind of got the most information on. Someone who probably doesn't read a lot of DC, it would make sense that you would choose the ones that you'd actually know about.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my rankings, I'm going to start at the bottom. Flash. I don't know too much about the character. I haven't watched the TV show. Read a bit of his comics. I enjoy him. Not a huge Flash guy. Coming in at second last, I'm going to go with Green Lantern. I think it could be done really well. I'm still waiting to see who they cast. I don't really know who's going to be in it. Who they cast as Hal Jordan and who they get to direct will go a long way. You're doing a space movie. I mean, J.J. Abrams is probably out of the budget at this point in time. He's going to blow up after Star Wars. So I'm not really sure who they're going to get. I like to see a fresh new face. Maybe try something new. Cyborg is after that. I really think Ray Fisher has the look of Cyborg. He looks the part. I don't know too much about Cyborg. He's a character that was in the Teen Titans. I'm going to go with him. Then after that is Shazam. As you said, I mean, you got The Rock in it. He's such a cool character. He has this built-in rivalry with Superman. I'd like to see that explored a little bit more. I'm not sure if this is going to take place in the same DC cinematic universe or if it'll be kind of a one-off. Looking forward to that one. Next is Suicide Squad. Seen a lot. That looks great. I'd love to see more between, as you said, the Joker and Harley. Then you got Deadshot. You got Captain Boomerang. Killer Croc is in it. I never thought I'd see a movie with Killer Croc in it. That just says it all. That's awesome. Quickly here, Wonder Woman. She's my girl. I love Wonder Woman comics. I think she's one of the best characters, not just in DC, but not just even in Marvel. I think she's just one of the best, fictional characters ever created. Just a well thought out character. Looking forward to seeing more of that. Then after that, in the third place, is Aquaman. Jason Momoa. I mean, he's such a cool dude. How could you not want to look forward to his portrayal as Aquaman? That's going to be awesome. James Wan is an amazing director. Everything he's done has been great, so Aquaman's high up there. Then Justice League 1 and 2, I'm looking forward to see what they do with this, who they have as the big baddie. I don't know too much about it. We don't really know too much about it, but we'll probably get a clear picture after the first one, Batman vs. Superman. How could it be anything other than this movie? This movie has been so hyped for so long. We've had so many different rumors, and everyone is wanting to see more, and it's been pushed back twice, or changed dates twice. It's just time for this movie to come out. Plus, I'm a huge Doomsday fan. The one thing I'm really looking forward to is a Doomsday action figure. Those things are so hard to find. Please make an awesome one. Mattel or whoever's making these figures. I really want a sick Doomsday action figure. So that does it for our DC Cinematic Universe, and as the movies come out, we'll be reviewing them and giving you some more information.
Yeah, we'll definitely be revisiting this kind of discussion when we get the Batman vs. Superman movie finally dropping. And then, looking forward to that.
Awesome. So should we move on to the fishbowl?
Yeah, let's wrap it up here.
All right, so we got Aquaman's help here, and we're going to pick some questions here. So Aquaman, tell a fish to give us a question. Oh, thank you. It's Sebastian from The Little Mermaid. Nice cameo. All right. Best superhero vehicle. Okay, let's throw out the Batmobile because that's an obvious number one.
Yeah. For this one, I'm going to have to go with the Milano.
Oh,
from Guardians of the Galaxy. Nice pull. It's really the first time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that you're getting actual vehicles beyond the Quinjet and the Helicarrier and that, and the design of it was cool, and that carries over into the comics, or it actually is pulled from the comics. Some of these designs, not exactly, but the name is cool, and I really like that. That's probably my number one from kind of more the cinematic universe side.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna go more the comic books because this certainly wasn't that spectacular in movie form, but the motorcycle from Ghost Rider. Is there anything more badass than a flaming skeleton riding a motorcycle with chains? Like, that is just like amazing. Like, that is like, wow. That's my number one. No question about it.
Okay, cool. All right, one more here. Let's pull one more. All right. Hulk versus Superman. Very fitting for the episode. Who wins?
Well, I'm going to refer and cite precedent, where back when, people may not know this, but Marvel and DC at one time were friends. Hard to believe, I know, but they created a couple of crossover comics, and their first big one they did was DC vs. Marvel. And so how this worked was, back in the 90s, you could either call in or write, and they had 5 different matchups between 2 different characters. So one of these matchups was actually Superman versus the Hulk. And the viewers spoke, and Superman ended up winning. So I'm going to, cite the precedent here and go with Superman.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to go maybe a bit more controversial with this, and I'm going to say stalemate.
Wow.
I don't think we could pull a winner from this. I don't know. Can you see Superman actually punching the Hulk so much? Like, I guess we're looking for a submission, but I guess if we're talking cinematic universes, I guess technically Iron Man took out the Hulk.
That's true. With
The Hulkbuster
yeah.
suit. So maybe on a cinematic universe, maybe Superman wins. Comic universe, powers a little less defined. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go stalemate on this one. But if you want me to choose, you're gonna have to go Superman.
Nice.
Yeah. I feel you can just punch him until he turned back into Bruce Banner.
You know what I think he would do? Superman's such a nice dude. He'd come in and kind of calm the Hulk. He seems like such a nice guy. He'd probably make the Hulk tea.
You go Black Widow on him.
Yeah, he'd like touch
Lullaby.
Hulk's hand and sing a lullaby, and then as soon as he turns into Bruce Banner, bam! Superman uses super speed, throws him into space. Hulk's gone.
See ya.
Well, that wraps up our show for today. We went a little bit longer.
Yeah, exactly. And, this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to kind of start this at the end of this year. And, I'm really looking forward to what we can produce in the new year. I know we kind of said originally we're going to do every 2 weeks. And it looks like, maybe every week is something that we can do. But I just wanted to say, from us here at the Nerd Room, we wish everyone happy holidays. Safe and healthy, and happy New Year's.
Before we sign off, just want everyone, if you have a second, go and check out our sister podcast, The Delayed Icing, at SoundCloud. The Delayed Offside on SoundCloud, where hosts Adam and Baron talk to you about everything in the world of hockey. They add a humorous tone, and they focus mostly on Canadian hockey teams. So if you're a fan of hockey, check it out. Very funny. I enjoy it. I listen to it every weekend. Highly recommend it. Give it a go.
All right, from the Nerd Room, I'm Tim.
I'm Sunjay. Thank you for entering the Nerd Room.